The woman buying my house asked if the workbench was included. She said it from the doorway to the basement, one hand resting on the frame, the other holding a fan of paint cards. Her husband stood behind her with a tape measure clipped to his belt. Across the kitchen, my wife kept folding the same paper napkin into smaller and smaller squares. "I'm sorry," I said. "What did you ask?" "The workbench." Laurel smiled, though not confidently. "Tess said you built it into the wall, so I wasn't sure if you planned to take it." I looked at my daughter. Why would Laurel think she's buying this house? Nobody answered at first. That was the strange part. My family was never short on words until the words had to belong to somebody. Then Tess put down her coffee. "Because we talked about this." "You talked about it. You were sitting right there. So was the salt shaker." Cal made a sound that might have become a laugh under different circumstances. One look from his sister killed it. Tess leaned toward me. "Dad, you never said no." Laurel lowered the paint cards. Her husband slowly unhooked the tape measure from his belt. I looked around the table at my wife, my daughter, my son, and two people who had apparently been invited to measure my walls. "Then let me fix that," I said. "No." The refrigerator hummed into the silence. It was an old refrigerator and had earned the right. Laurel's husband, Dean, cleared his throat. "Maybe we should step outside." "No, please." I held up a hand. "You came all this way." "I'd like to know what you were told." "Mick," Ruth said. That was all. Just my name. After 42 years, a wife can put an entire warning into one syllable. But I wasn't sure which warning this was. Don't embarrass Tess. Don't embarrass me. Don't make this worse. Maybe all three. Laurel set the paint cards beside the sugar bowl. There were 6 shades, all some version of pale green, with names like Fern Whisper and Morning Moss. One of them was sitting on top of a glossy brochure showing a condominium lobby with white chairs nobody had ever sat in. "We were told you and Ruth were downsizing," she said, "that you wanted the house to go to someone who appreciated it." "We do appreciate it," Dean added quickly. "The woodwork, especially." He gestured toward the dining room, where somebody had stuck a blue dot beneath the sideboard. Once I noticed that dot, I started seeing others. Yellow under the old wingback chair, green under the narrow table by the stairs, a red one under the brass lamp Ruth and I had bought at an estate sale before Cal was born. Cal followed my eyes and rubbed his mouth. "What are the stickers?" I asked. Tess answered too fast. "That's separate. From selling my house? We were trying to save you work. By labeling my furniture?" Mom made a list. Ruth stopped folding the napkin. The lunch spread still covered half the table. Sliced ham, potato salad, a bowl of pickles Tess had complained were too sweet before eating 6 of them. Ruth had used the good serving platter, the white one with the thin blue rim. Laurel and Dean had arrived just as we finished, so I'd assumed Tess had invited them for coffee. It occurred to me then that everyone had been watching the clock except me. Laurel reached for her purse. "We really should go." Tess stood. "You don't have to leave. This is a misunderstanding." "It doesn't feel like one," Dean said. He wasn't rude about it. That made it worse. If he had been smug or pushy, I could have disliked him and enjoyed myself a little. Instead, he looked like a man who had walked into the wrong hospital room. I asked, "Did you sell your place?" "We rent," Laurel said. "Our lease is up in 2 months." "Tess told us the timing lined up," Dean added. Tess shot him a look, as if accurate information were a personal betrayal. Laurel glanced toward Ruth. "I'm sorry. I thought you both knew we were coming." Ruth's face changed. Not much. Her mouth tightened, and her eyes went to the paint cards instead of me. That answered one question and opened about 10 more. I walked Laurel and Dean to the front door. Nobody tried to stop me. Dean shook my hand, because some men will shake hands during an earthquake if there is still a floor beneath them. "For what it's worth," he said quietly. "It's a beautiful place. Thank you." Laurel stood on the porch with her purse clutched against her coat. "I would never have come if I'd known." "I believe you." "Behind me," Tess said. "Laurel, wait." Laurel did not wait. She and Dean crossed the front walk, got into their car, and pulled away without looking back. Tess watched from the doorway until their brake lights disappeared at the corner. Then she shut the door harder than necessary. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" I looked at her. Tess was 40 years old, successful, sharp, and capable of turning the phrase "what you just did" into a formal indictment. She had inherited Ruth's speed and my ability to hold a grudge, which was not a combination I would have selected from a catalog. I stopped strangers from measuring my basement. They're not strangers. Laurel has been my friend for 18 years. She's a stranger to my basement. Cal snorted before pretending to cough. Tess swung toward him. You can either help or leave. I didn't know there was a help option. You knew about this? I knew there was talk. There has been talk for 6 months, I said. There has been talk about the stairs. There has been talk about the roof. There has been talk about how your mother hates cleaning the upstairs bathroom after people who don't live here use it. Nobody asked me if I agreed to sell. I asked you at Thanksgiving, Ruth said. Her voice was calm, but she still wasn't looking at me. You said, what would you think about finding someplace smaller? And you stared at your plate. I was thinking, for 2 months? Cal sat back in his chair. Okay, I'm starting to see how both sides got here. Tess pointed at him. There are not 2 sides to whether a conversation happened. No, he said, but there seem to be 6 sides to what Dad's face means. Stop making jokes, Ruth said. Cal stopped. That scared me more than Tess shouting. Ruth gathered the napkin pieces into her palm. She had torn one corner without realizing it. I brought it up after Christmas, too. I showed you the listing for that place on Brookstone, the one with the underground parking, the one with no stairs. I said the kitchen was small. Yes, Mick, those were your words. I thought that meant you were considering it. It meant the kitchen was small. Tess dragged the condominium brochure out from under Laurel's paint cards and pushed it across the table. This one has a larger kitchen, 2 bedrooms, a balcony, and a community room we can reserve for holidays. The brochure stopped against my wrist. You chose a different condo? We found an option. Who's we? No one answered. I looked at Cal. He lifted both hands. I went on one tour. With your mother? With Mom and Tess. When? Last Saturday. Last Saturday I had spent 3 hours replacing a warped shelf in the upstairs linen closet because Ruth said the towels kept sliding forward. She had told me she and Tess were going shopping. I turned to Ruth. You toured a place. Yes. Anne didn't tell me. Her chin rose. I have told you I want to change. More than once. You told me this house was too much work. It is. So, we hire someone to help with the heavy cleaning. This isn't about hiring someone to clean gutters twice a year. Tess said it was the bathrooms. I said, people treat this place like a hotel, Tess replied. Ruth's eyes finally met mine. It's about being tired, Mick. There were a lot of answers I could have given. I could have pointed out that I still did repairs, still hauled the trash cans through snow, still handled the yard. I could have reminded her that she was the one who insisted on hosting every holiday because nobody arranged a table the way she liked. All those answers lined up neatly in my head, each one eager to make me right. I said none of them. Ruth gave a short, humorless laugh. There. That? What? That thing you do? I'm listening. No, you disappear while standing in front of me. The sentence landed so cleanly that even Tess went quiet. I pushed the brochure away. You could have told me Laurel and Dean were coming. I thought Tess had. Tess said, I sent a message in the family group. Yesterday at 10:30? Yes. The one that said, lunch at 1, important update. You reacted with a thumbs up. I meant I would be here for lunch. Tess pressed both hands to her temples. What does a thumbs up mean in your world? That I received the message. Cal looked down at the table, and I could tell he was fighting for his life. This isn't funny, Tess said. No, I agreed. Inviting a buyer into someone's home before they agree to sell it isn't funny. They were prepared to make a fair offer. I don't care if they were prepared to include a marching band. It keeps the house close to the family, Tess said. Laurel understands what this place means. She said we could still do dinners here sometimes. You could visit. Mom could see the garden. This doesn't have to feel like losing everything. There it was. Not greed, not cruelty exactly. Something more insulting because it wore such a pleasant face. They had arranged for me to visit my own rooms. I looked through the dining room archway. The long oak table was covered with lunch plates and water rings. For decades, people had walked into this house calling out instead of knocking. They knew which cabinet held the glasses and which stair creaked near the top. Tess had slept in the back bedroom during her divorce. Cal had once stored an entire drum set in my workshop for 11 months after promising it would be there 1 week. I had made room every time. Somewhere along the way they had decided that meant the room was theirs. I'm not selling the house to Laurel, I said. Tess crossed her arms. The offer only holds until Tuesday. I wasn't aware there was an offer. That's because we were trying to present you with a complete solution instead of another problem. A complete solution to what? To you getting older. The words came out hard. Tess heard them at the same moment I did. Cal whispered, "Tess." She looked away, blinking fast, but she didn't take them back. I turned to Ruth. "Is that what you think this is?" She rose and carried the torn napkin to the trash. "I think I'm done having this conversation in a room where everyone is performing." "Who's performing?" "All of us." She smoothed the front of her sweater, though it wasn't wrinkled. "I'm going to stay with Tess for a few days." My first thought was that she was bluffing. My second was that Ruth did not bluff. She planned. Tess picked up her purse without surprise. "You already packed?" I asked. Ruth looked toward the front window. Tess's SUV sat at the curb. Through the rear glass, I could see a small navy suitcase lying on its side. Not a large bag. 3 days, maybe 4. Long enough to have been considered before Laurel rang the bell. "I didn't know how today would go," Ruth said. I looked at the colored dots beneath our furniture, the condo brochure by my hand, and the pale green paint cards Laurel had forgotten beside the sugar bowl. Apparently, I was the only one who hadn't. Ruth reached for her coat on the peg beside the door. I followed her into the hall. "You packed before lunch. I put a few things together this morning." "Before Laurel came." "Yes." Tess hovered behind her mother like a bodyguard who had purchased sensible boots. I said, "So you knew this might happen." Ruth slipped one arm into her coat. "I knew something would happen. I didn't know what. You knew I hadn't agreed. I knew you hadn't said anything. That's not the same thing." "No, Mick, it isn't." She worked the other arm into the sleeve. "That's the problem." She opened the hall closet and took out the red scarf I'd given her 2 Christmases earlier. For some reason, watching her loop it around her neck bothered me more than the suitcase outside. The scarf belonged to our ordinary life. She wore it to the grocery store. She left it over the back of kitchen chairs. It had no business participating in a separation. "How long are you staying?" I asked. "A few days. That means nothing." "It means I don't know." Tess picked up Ruth's purse from the sideboard. There was a green sticker beneath it. Ruth noticed the sticker, peeled it off, and stuck it to the back of Tess's hand. "You can take those off before you leave," she said. Tess stared at her. "All of them." "Mom, I was trying to organize." "I know what you were trying to do." That was the first moment I saw a crack between them. It was small, but Cal saw it too. His eyebrows lifted. Tess removed the sticker from her hand. "We can come back for the rest. There is no rest." "I'm taking a suitcase, not moving in." The fact that Ruth corrected her should have comforted me. It didn't. Tess opened the front door, bringing in a cold draft. Ruth looked back at me. For half a second I thought she might ask me to come outside, or tell me not to worry, or give me one of the small instructions married people use when they cannot say what they mean. Instead, she said, "There's ham in the refrigerator." Then she left. Tess paused on the porch. "You should call Laurel." "I don't have Laurel's number. I'll send it to you." "Don't." "She deserves an apology. She does. From you." Tess's face hardened, but Ruth called her name from the curb. She went down the walk without another word. Cal and I stood in the open doorway while Tess loaded Ruth's suitcase into the back of the SUV. Ruth got into the passenger seat. She did not look at the house. The SUV pulled away. Cal shut the door gently. "Well," he said. I turned toward him. He nodded. "Not the time." "No." "Understood." We went back to the kitchen. The lunch looked abandoned rather than finished. A slice of ham had curled at the edge. Ice melted in untouched glasses. Laurel's paint cards still lay beside the sugar bowl, and I could see the smudge where her thumb had rubbed across morning moss. Cal started stacking plates. "You can go," I said. "I know. I don't need supervision. I know that too." He scraped potato salad into the trash. Cal had been a handsome young man and had aged into the kind of face strangers trusted with directions. His hair had gone gray at the temples, though he insisted it was the lighting in our kitchen. He worked in sales, which suited his talent for making other people feel that an awkward conversation had been their idea. I took the plates from him and put them in the sink. "Did you know they'd chosen Laurel?" I knew Tess was talking to her. "That isn't what I asked." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Yes, how long?" "A couple weeks." "And you didn't think to mention it?" "I thought Mom had." "You thought a lot of things today." Apparently it runs in the family. I looked at him. Sorry, I turned on the faucet. Cal reached past me and turned it off. Dad, don't do dishes angry. I'm not angry at the dishes. You're going to chip the platter. He was right. I had the good platter braced against the steel sink like I was preparing to interrogate it. I set it on the counter. Cal picked up a dish towel. Tess said Mom was ready, you were almost there, and Laurel would make it simple. Does any part of that sound like me? The almost there part. I laughed once despite myself. You toured the condo. He folded the towel lengthwise, then unfolded it. Mom asked me to come. Why? To look at the parking, the storage room. See whether you could use the extra bedroom for some of your tools. Nothing creates confidence like a carpeted workshop. I told them that. Did you? I said you wouldn't like it, but you went along. He laid the towel over the oven handle, perfectly even. I didn't want Mom walking through it alone. She wasn't alone. Tess was there. You know what I mean. I did. Tess could be helpful so aggressively that receiving her help became a second job. Cal had probably gone to translate between his mother's polite hesitations and his sister's floor plan. He pulled out a chair and sat. Mom wasn't happy there. Then why is the brochure on my table? Because Tess brought 6 brochures. That sounded right. Did Ruth say she wanted to buy it? She said she liked the light. Ruth likes sunlight. That's not a binding agreement. Cal gave me a tired look. You're doing it to her now. Doing what? Taking one sentence literally so you don't have to deal with the rest of it. I gripped the edge of the counter. Cal's hands went up. I'm not saying what Tess did was okay. It wasn't. Laurel coming here was insane. Thank you. But Mom has been talking about leaving this house for a while. She's been talking about the work. She's been talking about both, to you, to everybody. The kitchen felt suddenly too warm. I walked to the thermostat and lowered it 2 degrees, which was not an answer to anything. Cal watched me. She thought you knew. She thought I agreed. I don't know what she thought. You just said, I know what I said. He sighed. This is why I make jokes. No? You make jokes because you like attention. That too. I opened the refrigerator and put away the ham. Ruth had already cleared a space for the platter. On the shelf below, it sat 3 glass containers, each labeled in her neat handwriting. Soup, chicken, pasta. I stared at them longer than necessary. Cal came up beside me. She cooks ahead all the time. I know. Okay. I live here, Cal. I didn't say you didn't. You said it like I'd never opened the refrigerator. He took a step back. Do you want me to stay or go? I want one person today to do what they actually want. He leaned against the counter and considered that. I want to stay long enough to get the stickers off, he said. Then I want to go home, pour something brown into a short glass, and not answer my phone when Tess calls. It was the most direct thing he'd said all day. Fine. We moved through the house without much conversation. Tess had used 4 colors, blue for her, green for Cal, yellow for things Ruth apparently wanted to donate, and red for items Laurel might buy with the house. Cal found a sheet of paper tucked beneath the fruit bowl explaining the system. He read it, folded it once, and put it in his pocket. I'd like to see that. No, you wouldn't. It's in my house. It's Tess's handwriting. Legally, we've reached a complex jurisdiction. Give it to me. He did. The list was titled, Transition in capital letters. Tess had made columns for furniture, repairs, disposal, and timing. My workbench appeared under the heading Negotiable. The brass lamp was marked Cal with a question mark. At the bottom, Ruth had written in blue ink, not the dining table. I read that line twice. Mom added a few notes, Cal said. I see that. She didn't make the list. She participated. Yes. His willingness to agree irritated me more than a defense would have. I folded the paper and set it in the drawer where Ruth kept takeout menus. Then we removed stickers. They came off easily except for one Tess had pressed onto the underside of the coffee table. Cal lay on his back trying to scrape it with his thumbnail. Red? I asked. Blue? She wants the coffee table. She says it's vintage. It's from Sears. Sears is vintage now. He wriggled out, holding the blue circle on his fingertip. For the record, I don't want the lamp. You used to. I was 19. You said it made the room look like an old detective movie. I was 19 and high. I looked at him. On life. You were never good at lying. No, that's why I went into sales. The laugh escaped before I could stop it. Cal grinned, pleased with himself. Then the grin faded when he saw my face. "Dad," he said, "call Mom tonight. I plan to. Don't ask when she's coming home." "Why not?" "Because then she'll hear that you want the situation fixed, not that you want to understand why she left." I leaned the coffee table back into place. "Is that what she told you?" "No. It's what my ex-wife told me about 20 times. Cal had been married for 9 years and divorced for 5. He rarely mentioned it without attaching a punchline. This time he picked up his coat and checked the pockets for his keys. At the door he said, "Tess is wrong. When she acts like being scared, gives her permission to take over." "Scared of what?" He looked toward the stairs, then the kitchen, then me. "You two getting older, things changing, her not being able to stop it." She chose an interesting way to express concern. "You taught us all to express concern by fixing things. I fixed things that were broken." Cal opened the door. "Exactly." After he left, I stood in the hall listening to the house settle. Pipes knocked inside the wall. The furnace started. A branch scratched the upstairs window with the same sound it had made for 3 winters, the sound I kept meaning to fix by trimming the maple. I went into the kitchen and washed the dishes. Cal had been right about the platter. I nearly dropped it twice. When everything was dry, I put the plates away and carried Laurel's paint cards to the trash. Morning moss landed face up on top of the torn napkin. The condo brochure remained on the table. I opened it despite myself. The rooms were bright. Cal had not exaggerated about that. The kitchen had a wide window above the sink, and the balcony looked over a line of trees. In the staged photograph, 2 coffee cups sat on a little metal table, as if the people who lived there had nothing more demanding to discuss than the weather. Someone had circled the floor plan in blue ink, Ruth's pen. Beside the second bedroom, she had written, "Mick, not workshop, not tools, just my name, followed by a question mark." I closed the brochure and called her. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hi," she said. In the background I heard cabinet doors, running water. Tess saying something I couldn't make out. Ruth must have stepped away because the noise softened. "I took the stickers off," I said. There was a pause. "Good," Cal helped. That was good of him. I looked at the refrigerator, the clean counters, the empty chair where she usually sat with her evening tea. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. "For once, that's better than pretending you don't need to say anything." I let that sit between us. Then I said, "Can we talk tomorrow?" "Yes." "Here?" "No." The answer came gently, but it came without hesitation. "Where then?" "Somewhere neither of us owns." I almost argued with the wording. Instead, I asked her to choose. She named a diner near the river where we had not eaten in years. 12:30, she said. "I'll be there." After we hung up, I stood alone in the kitchen with the phone still against my ear, listening to a silence nobody could mistake for agreement. I woke up at 4:30 because Ruth wasn't breathing beside me. For one clean, terrible second, I thought something had happened to her. Then I saw her pillow, smooth and untouched, and remembered exactly where she was. I got up at 6. By 7, I had cleaned the coffee maker, tightened a loose handle on the downstairs bathroom cabinet, and sorted a jar of screws I had not opened since the previous spring. At 8, I stood in front of the washing machine holding one of Ruth's sweaters and reading the care label as though it contained a riddle left by a hostile civilization. I put the sweater back in the hamper. At 11, I changed shirts twice. The first looked like I was going to a funeral. The second made me look like I had dressed for a golf course despite not owning golf clubs. I settled on blue plaid, then arrived at the diner 28 minutes early. The Riverbend had changed its sign, but nothing else. Same brown booths, same metal napkin dispensers, same framed photograph of a steamboat that had probably never come within 50 miles of our town. The hostess tried to seat me, but I told her I was waiting for my wife. "Anniversary?" she asked. "No." She looked at my face and stopped guessing. I took a booth by the window. Outside, the river moved beneath a flat gray sky. Chunks of old snow clung to the curb, blackened at the edges by road salt. I opened a menu and read the breakfast section 3 times. Ruth came in at 12:27 wearing the red scarf. She spotted me, spoke briefly to the hostess, and slid into the booth across from me. She had done something different with her hair, or maybe she had simply taken more time with it than usual. I wanted to tell her she looked nice. It felt dangerous, as if a compliment might sound like a tactic. "You're early," she said. "So are you." 3 minutes isn't early for me. No, it's practically late. The corner of her mouth moved, but not enough to call it a smile. A waitress appeared with 2 menus, though I already had one, and asked whether we wanted coffee. Yes, I said. Tea, Ruth said, hot. Lemon, no milk. I know how you take tea. Ruth looked at me. I was telling her. The waitress glanced between us. I'll bring both. As soon as she left, I said, Is Tess giving you a hard time? Ruth leaned back. That's where you want to start? I'm asking if you're comfortable. You're asking whether Tess is responsible for me still being at her house. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. I folded my menu. I'm trying to understand. No. You're looking for the part of this that belongs to someone else. The waitress returned with coffee, a small metal pot of hot water, a tea bag, and a bowl of lemon wedges. She arranged them carefully, sensing that every extra second spent at our table might be considered humanitarian work. Ruth lowered the tea bag into the pot. Tess has apologized for bringing Laurel over without confirming that you knew. Confirming that I knew? Those were her words, not mine. Did she apologize to Laurel? Yes. To you? She doesn't owe me the same apology. I waited. Ruth sighed. I knew Laurel was interested. I knew Tess had spoken to her. Yesterday morning, Tess told me Laurel and Dean might stop by after lunch to talk about the house. And you didn't mention it. I thought you knew. You saw my face when they came in. I saw it. And you let them walk into the basement. I froze. The admission surprised me. Ruth did not freeze. She acted. If somebody dropped a glass at dinner, Ruth had a broom in her hand before the pieces stopped moving. I kept thinking, she continued, surely you know. Surely Tess told you more than she told me. Surely the two of you had some conversation I missed. Then Dean took out that tape measure, and I realized nobody knew what anybody else knew. So, you packed because you expected that? I packed because I expected you to shut down, Tess to push, and me to get trapped in the middle translating both of you. You could have stopped it. Yes. She said it without defending herself. I should have, she added. I knew Tess was moving too fast. I let her because it was easier than trying to make you move at all. My coffee tasted burned. I drank it anyway. Ruth stirred honey into her tea. I'm not proud of that. Then come home. Her spoon stopped against the cup. I heard how it sounded only after I said it. A problem identified, an action assigned, matter resolved. Ruth set the spoon down. I have been home for 42 years. That isn't what I meant. I know. But listen to yourself. You think my leaving is the emergency? It isn't. What is? The fact that I had to leave before you asked me a direct question. I asked you plenty of questions yesterday. About the condo. About Laurel. About who knew what. You didn't ask what I wanted until after everyone else was gone. I looked toward the river. Do you want to sell the house? I asked. Yes. The answer came so quickly I felt it in my chest. Ruth wrapped both hands around her tea. I don't want Tess's condominium. I don't want white carpet and a community room with folding chairs. I don't want to live close enough for her to drop by every time she buys a new kind of olive oil. But yes, Mick, I want to leave that house. Why? She watched me for a moment, deciding whether the question was real, because I am tired of managing it. I manage the repairs. I didn't say maintaining. I said managing. What's the difference? Do you know who is coming to dinner Sunday? No one now, before yesterday. I searched my memory. Cal, probably. Cal and Dana. Tess. Laurel was supposed to come early, though apparently that was for a different reason than I understood. Your cousin Frank called Friday and said he might stop in. He is bringing Marcy. I didn't know that. That is the difference. Then tell Frank he can't come. You tell him. Fine. Do you have his number? Of course I have his number. Where? In my phone. You have his old number. I took out my phone and opened my contacts. There were 2 entries for Frank. One marked mobile and one marked new mobile. The number labeled new mobile began with an area code he had not used since moving back to Ohio. Ruth waited. That doesn't prove anything. It isn't supposed to prove anything. You think I'm building a case, aren't you? No, I am telling you what my days feel like. The waitress came back to take our order. Ruth chose tomato soup and half a turkey sandwich. I ordered the same because I had not read beyond breakfast and did not want to hold things up. When we were alone again, Ruth said, People call me about meals, beds, allergies, times, rides, whether they can bring someone. They ask me where the spare blankets are while standing 3 feet from the closet. They tell you how good everything smells. I say thank you. I know. You're very gracious about meals you didn't know were happening. That one was unfair enough to make me angry and accurate enough to keep me quiet, Ruth noticed. Say it, she said. What? Whatever you're swallowing. I think you like hosting. I did. I still like parts of it. I like setting a table. I like feeding people. I like when the house is full and everybody is talking at once. I don't like that they assume I will do it forever. I don't like that I help them assume it. You could say no. So could you. We stared at each other. There was no satisfaction in the point. Ruth looked tired after making it. Our food arrived. The soup was hot enough to remove skin. We ate carefully for a minute, grateful for a task that had rules. I said, I'm scared they won't come if we leave. Ruth put down her spoon. It was not a dramatic confession. I said it quietly, looking at the edge of my plate. Still, the whole conversation shifted. That house is where everybody comes, I continued. They don't invite us over nearly as often. Cal's place is too small. Tess hosts like she's taking a certification exam. Frank doesn't even own 6 matching forks. Frank barely owns 6 forks. If we move somewhere with one small guest room and no long table, what happens? We find out whether they want us or the convenience. And if we don't like the answer, at least it will be an answer. I rubbed my thumb along a scratch in the tabletop. I don't know who I am in one of those places. Neither do I. You sound pretty certain. I'm certain I can't keep being who I am now. She picked up her sandwich, then set it down without taking a bite. I love that house, she said. That is what makes this hard. I know which floorboard sounds different in February. I know the afternoon light in our bedroom. I know you sit on the 3rd basement step when you're pretending to look for something, but really want to hear what people are saying upstairs. I don't do that. You did it during Cal's divorce. He was upset. He was 39. He was still upset. Ruth almost smiled again. This time, it lasted. Then she said, I don't want to divorce you, if that's what you're afraid to ask. I looked up. I'm not saying everything is fine, she added. It isn't. But I didn't pack because I want another life. I packed because I need this one to change. I let out a breath I had apparently been holding since the previous afternoon. 30 days, I said. For what? No buyers, no showings, no tests with a roll of colored dots. We don't decide to sell or stay for 30 days. Ruth's eyes narrowed. 30 days can also be another way to delay, then we use them. You write down what you need in a home. I'll do the same. We look at places together, not brochures someone else picked, actual places. And the house? We look at that too, honestly. She was silent long enough for me to understand what I had been asking other people to tolerate all these years. I nearly filled the space. I didn't. Finally, she said, no children voting. Agreed. No buyers waiting in the wings. Agreed. You answer questions with words, not a stare, not a grunt, not a thumbs up. How many words? Mick. That was a question, a sentence. You answer in sentences. I can do that? You can. You usually don't. The waitress brought the check and placed it between us. I reached for it at the same time Ruth did. Our hands touched. Neither of us made anything of it. 30 days, she said. Will you come home? Not today. I started to ask why, then stopped. Ruth saw me stop. That counted as one of your stares. I was choosing my words. Choose faster. I want you home. I also understand that saying it doesn't settle what happened. She nodded once. Better? We split the check, which felt ridiculous after 4 decades of joint accounts, but Ruth insisted. Outside, the wind came off the river hard enough to pull at her scarf. Sunday dinner is canceled, she said. I'll tell everyone. Everyone includes Frank. I'll find his number. She walked to Tess's SUV, then turned back. Anne Laurel deserves an apology. I know, not for refusing to sell. No, for letting her walk into a family argument she didn't know existed. I know that too. Ruth drove away. At home, I took the transition list from the drawer and turned it over. I found a pen and wrote workshop at the top. Under it, I added quiet. I stared at the 2 words, then crossed out the second one. After a while, I wrote, a place where Ruth can sit down before everybody else leaves. It looked sentimental, so I added a second line beneath it. A place where I can shut a door. That made the first line look like a hostage negotiation. I folded the paper and put it in my shirt pocket. Then I found Frank's new number buried in a text Ruth had sent me 6 months earlier with the words, "Save this one." I had answered with a thumbs up. Frank picked up after one ring. What broke? Nothing broke. You don't call unless something broke or somebody died. Sunday dinner is canceled. Who died? Nobody. Is Ruth sick? No. We're taking a break from hosting. Frank went quiet, which on him was like a generator shutting off. Are you two okay? He asked. We're working on it. Is that why Ruth called Marcy yesterday? I closed my eyes. Probably. Marcy didn't tell me anything. You just told me Ruth called her. She told me that part. Frank. Fine. We won't come Sunday. Do you need company? The question caught me off guard. Not dinner, not an explanation. Company, no, but thank you. You sure? Yes. That sounded like a sentence. I'm trying something new. He laughed. Call me if it doesn't take. Next, I opened the family group on my phone. The last message was Tess's important update, followed by my thumbs up, Cal's thumbs up, and Ruth's check mark. I typed slowly. Sunday dinner is canceled. Your mother and I are taking 30 days to make our own decision about the house. During that time, there will be no buyers, showings, sorting, stickers, furniture claims, or condo tours. We will ask for help if we want it. I read it twice before sending. Cal replied first. Understood. Then, 10 seconds later. That is a complete sentence. Dana added a heart. She had a talent for entering family conversations after the explosion and acting as if she'd simply noticed the weather. Tess called. I let it ring once before answering, which was restraint. You can't announce something like that in a group message, she said. I just did. Mom agreed to this? Yes. She didn't mention it. We met for lunch. You met without telling me? I looked around the empty kitchen. Did you want to measure the booth? That's not fair. No, it wasn't. There was a short silence, followed by the sound of a door closing on her end. She had moved away from Ruth. What does 30 days mean? Tess asked. It means 30 days. Then what? Your mother and I decide. Based on what? What we want. That's all? I almost laughed. It used to be considered enough. You're acting like I forced Mom into this. You brought buyers into our house without making sure I knew they were buyers. I made a mistake. Yes, I have apologized. To your mother and Laurel. She's devastated, by the way. I need her number. For what? To apologize. Tess hesitated. She may not want to talk to you. Then she won't answer. I should call her first. No. Dad, I'm not asking you to manage the apology. The line went quiet. Fine, she said. I'll send it. Thank you. You're welcome. Neither of us hung up. Finally, Tess said, Mom wants to sell. I know. She's wanted to sell for longer than you think. I know that now. I'm not the villain here. I didn't call you one. You didn't have to. There was a family resemblance in the way we both accused people of saying things they had not said. I think you were trying to solve a problem, I told her. I think you decided that gave you the right to choose the solution. You make it sound like I was getting something out of this. You were. What? Control. She inhaled sharply. Before she could answer, I said, Send me Laurel's number. Then I hung up. My hand shook afterward, not from fear exactly. More like I had lifted something heavier than expected, and my muscles had not decided whether to be proud or angry. Tess sent the number without a message. Laurel answered in a careful voice. Hello? This is Mick Harlan. Oh, I'm calling to apologize for yesterday. You don't need to apologize for not selling your house. I know, I'm apologizing because you and Dean walked into something private that should never have reached you. She did not rush to make me feel better. I respected that. I wish Tess had been clearer, she said. So do I. She told us your family wanted someone connected to the house, someone who wouldn't tear everything out. That mattered to Tess. She said it mattered to both of you. I looked toward the dining room. Sunlight had found the brass lamp and turned the shade the color of old whiskey. What exactly did she promise? I asked. Laurel let out a breath. I don't want to make things worse. You won't. She said the price and timing still had to be discussed. She wasn't pretending the paperwork was finished, but she said the decision was made. She said Ruth was relieved and you were being quiet because moves make you emotional. I see. I'm sorry. That isn't your apology to make. She also said keeping the house with people you knew meant you could visit. Yes. I heard that part. I thought that was something you wanted. I'm sure she did too. Laurel was silent for a moment. Dean and I aren't going forward. The speed of my relief embarrassed me. You don't need to decide that because of one bad afternoon. It isn't one afternoon. If we bought it, Tess would always think of it as partly hers. Maybe all of you would. Dean said he doesn't want to ask permission every time he paints a wall. He's a sensible man. He also hates morning moss. I was trying not to hold that against him. She laughed, and the tightness in her voice loosened. Then she said, Ruth didn't seem relieved. When? A few weeks ago. Tess invited me for coffee. Ruth came by while we were talking about the house. She was polite, but she kept saying, we're considering options. Tess would say, Mom, this is what you wanted. And Ruth would say, I wanted to talk about it. I sat down. Did Ruth know you were serious? I think so. But I don't think she knew Tess had already shown us photographs of every room. Photographs? From holidays. Nothing strange? Nothing strange. Just years of family pictures repurposed into a sales presentation. I shouldn't have come over, Laurel said. Even if I thought you knew, I should have called you myself. Tess can make the next step feel like the only step. She cares about you. I know. That isn't always the same as respecting you. The sentence was too precise to come from nowhere. You and Tess okay? I asked. I don't know yet. I'm sorry for that too. I'm not. Maybe we needed the argument. We ended the call on better terms than we started. Afterward, I stood in the dining room studying the walls, trying to guess which photographs Tess had shown them. The Christmas picture where Ruth wore silver earrings, Cal asleep in the wingback chair after Thanksgiving, Frank holding up a burned dinner roll as if it were evidence in court. Every image would have made the house look warm. None showed Ruth washing serving dishes at midnight. The front door opened without a knock. I stepped into the hall. Ruth stood with her key still in the lock. You could have warned me, I said. She raised an eyebrow. I live here. Yes. You do. I came for clothes. She had an empty canvas bag over one shoulder. No Tess, no Cal. The red scarf was tucked into the collar of her coat. I spoke to Laurel, I said. So did Tess. Laurel and Dean don't want the house. Ruth closed the door behind her. That's probably wise. She said you kept telling Tess you were considering options. I was. But you let me think you believed a decision had been made. Ruth removed her gloves one finger at a time. Yesterday, I believed you had agreed to more than you had. Today, after talking to Tess, I understand how far she stretched every conversation. Does that change anything? It changes what I'm angry about. Does it change wanting to sell? No. The directness still hurt, but it no longer surprised me. Ruth walked upstairs. I followed and stopped in the bedroom doorway while she opened drawers. She chose practical things. Socks, 2 sweaters, another pair of slacks. The room looked intact, yet her side of the closet had begun to show narrow gaps. I sent the 30-day message, I said. I saw it. Tess wasn't happy. Tess is making soup. What does that mean? It means she's unhappy. Ruth placed a nightgown in the bag. She chops vegetables when she wants somebody to notice how much she's doing. Where could she have learned that? Ruth looked at me over her shoulder. That was a joke, I said. I know. It wasn't a bad one. I took the folded paper from my pocket. I started my list. She sat on the edge of the bed and read both sides. Workshop. Quiet crossed out. A place where I can shut a door. Her expression changed at the last line. A place where Ruth can sit down before everybody else leaves. I don't know what kind of house has that. The kind where you tell people to clear their own plates. That seems architectural. It would be revolutionary. She handed the paper back. Where's your list? I asked. In my purse. Can I see it? Not yet. Why? I wrote what I want before I knew whether you were serious. I need to read it again when I'm not angry. Fair enough? She zipped the canvas bag, but did not stand. I don't want you staying away just to prove a point, I said. I'm not, and I don't want Tess deciding when you come back. She isn't. Then what decides it? Ruth ran her palm across the quilt between us. I need to believe I can come back without the house swallowing the conversation. I don't know what that means, I know. Can you try a different sentence? She considered that. I don't want to return and immediately become the person who makes dinner, answers calls, finds your sweater, smooths everything over, and accepts that because you're quieter than Tess, you're somehow less controlling. That last part struck deeper than I expected. I don't control you. You control what can be discussed by refusing to participate until everybody gives up. I sat beside her, leaving space between us. I don't know when I'm doing it. I believe you. That doesn't make it better? No. We sat without touching. Downstairs, the phone began vibrating against the kitchen table. Once, then again, then a third time. Family group, Ruth said. How can you tell? Tess is hosting Sunday dinner. I checked the messages after Ruth left. Sunday at my place, 6 o'clock, Tess had written. I'll handle everything, Frank had replied with a thumbs up. Cal had written, should we bring anything? Tess answered immediately. No, I said, I'll handle it. Ruth added one line. Mick should come too. I read it several times. Then Tess's response appeared. Of course. Dad, please come. It was the first invitation to a family dinner I could remember receiving, and it felt nothing like being welcome. I considered declining until Sunday afternoon, when Frank called and asked whether he should wear a tie. To Tess's house? She said 6 o'clock sharp. That sounds formal. It means 6 o'clock. That's what Marcy said. I'm wearing the tie. I arrived at 5:58 carrying a bottle of wine, despite Tess's instruction to bring nothing. Her house was a narrow brick colonial with a polished brass knocker she never used because she had a camera doorbell. I had barely stepped onto the porch when the door opened. You're early, she said. It's 5:58. Exactly. She took the wine, examined the label, and set it on a small table in the hall. She wore a white blouse, dark slacks, and an apron printed with lemons. Ruth owned the same apron, except hers had a permanent stain near the pocket from an argument with blueberry filling. Something smelled scorched. Do you need help? I asked. No. All right. Tess frowned as if I had failed a test by accepting the answer. Ruth sat in the living room with Marcy. She had not dressed up, but she wore the silver earrings from the Christmas picture Laurel had probably seen. Her canvas bag stood beside the stairs, still packed. Frank was at the window, adjusting a blue tie that ended 3 inches above his belt. I told you, he said when he saw me. Classy. You look like you're scheduled to testify. Marcy laughed. Ruth smiled into her glass of water. Frank hugged me, which was not our usual arrangement. We generally slapped each other on the shoulder and considered the matter handled. You all right? He asked into my ear. I'm fine. He released me and looked disappointed. I'm working on it, I added. Better. Cal and Dana arrived at 6:02 with a bakery box. Dana was compact, warm-faced, and better at noticing discomfort than anyone in the family. Cal maintained that this was because she worked in human resources. Dana maintained that it was because the Harlans could produce enough discomfort to be visible from space. Tess met them in the hall. I said not to bring anything. They're rolls, Cal said. I made rolls. These are backup rolls. Why do we need backup rolls? Cal glanced toward the kitchen. No reason. Dana kissed Tess's cheek and took the bakery box from him before he could make things worse. Dinner was supposed to be roast chicken, potatoes, green beans, salad, and homemade rolls. Tess had written the menu on a small chalkboard beside the refrigerator. She had also written the time beside each item. Chicken, 6:15 potatoes, 6:17 beans, 6:20 salad, 6:22 rolls, 6:23. You scheduled the salad? I asked. Tess opened the oven. A wave of smoke came out. It keeps me organized. Does the smoke have a time? Dad. I moved toward the oven. The pan's too high. I know. The skin is touching the top element. I said I know. She grabbed 2 quilted mitts and pulled out the roasting pan. The chicken was dark on one side and pale on the other. Tess stared at it as though it had behaved irresponsibly on purpose. Ruth stayed in the living room. That was unusual enough to draw everyone's attention. Ruth had never remained seated while another person fought with a meal. Even at restaurants, she stacked plates for the server. Tess turned toward her. Mom, yes? Does this look done? I can't tell from here. Tess waited. Ruth took a sip of water. I have the thermometer, Tess said. That should tell you. I watched my daughter understand in real time that her mother was not coming to rescue the chicken. Tess inserted the thermometer. It needs another 20 minutes. Frank checked his watch. That puts us around 6:38. Marcy elbowed him. We can wait, Dana said. Tess put the chicken back in the oven on a lower rack. The potatoes will be cold. Then warm them up, Cal said. They'll dry out. Then we'll eat dry potatoes. I don't serve dry potatoes. Cal looked at me. Did we know this about her? We suspected. Dinner reached the table at 6:41. The chicken was done, the potatoes were dry, the beans were excellent, and Tess's rolls resembled 6 polished stones arranged in a basket. Cal's backup rolls sat unopened on the counter. Tess directed everyone to assigned seats. I was placed at one end of the table and Ruth at the other. The arrangement made us look like opposing attorneys. Frank poured wine. Marcy asked Dana about work. Cal praised the beans with the intensity of a man trying to prevent an international incident. For nearly 10 minutes, nobody mentioned the house. Then Tess said, "I spoke to Laurel." Every fork slowed. Ruth asked, "How did that go?" "She thinks I misled her." "You did," I said. Tess looked down the table at me. "I misunderstood the situation. You described a decision that hadn't been made because Mom told me she wanted to sell, and you never objected." Ruth set down her glass. "Don't put all of that on him." I looked at her. She continued, "I knew you were talking to Laurel. I should have made sure Mick knew how serious it had become." Tess blinked. "You said he would come around." I said I hoped he would. "You told me you couldn't keep living in that house. I can want to leave without giving you permission to sell it for me. I wasn't selling it for you. I found a buyer. You brought the buyer into our kitchen. I apologized for that." Then stop explaining it like the apology erased the choice. The table went quiet except for Frank cutting a backup roll he had apparently smuggled onto his plate. Tess saw it. "Where did you get that?" "Dana." Dana raised her wine. "Leave me out of this." Cal covered his mouth. Tess's eyes filled, which changed the room faster than shouting would have. She rarely cried in front of us. Anger was useful to her. Tears felt like losing control of the presentation. "I was trying to help," she said. Ruth's voice softened. "I know. No, you don't. You call me every time something needs to happen. You ask me to find places. You ask me to look into moving companies. You said Dad wouldn't discuss it. All true. Then I get it done, and suddenly I'm controlling. You got ahead of us, because you never finish anything." The words were aimed at Ruth, not me. Tess stood and began collecting plates, though most of us were still eating. "You talk about what you want, then you feel guilty and back away." Dad says nothing. Cal makes a joke. Then everybody looks at me to make an actual decision. Cal lowered his fork. "We don't all look at you. You absolutely do." "I usually look at Dana." "True," Dana said. Tess carried 2 plates into the kitchen. Ruth rose halfway out of habit, stopped herself, and sat again. The kitchen faucet came on hard. China struck the metal sink. I said, "She's not entirely wrong." Ruth looked at me. "No." Cal leaned back. "Can I be partly wrong instead of completely wrong? I feel like I've earned that." "You knew Laurel was coming," Tess called from the kitchen. "I knew she was interested. I did not know she was bringing a tape measure. You always know just little enough to avoid responsibility." Cal's expression changed. Dana put a hand over his. He said, "I knew Dad looked trapped. I didn't stop it." Tess returned with empty hands. "Thank you. That wasn't support for you. I'll take what I can get." Frank cleared his throat. "Marcy says I should stay out of this." "She's right," all 3 of us said. Frank nodded. "Good. Just checking." Marcy put down her fork. "I do have one question." Nobody stopped her. She looked at me. "Do you want to stay in the house, or do you want everybody else to keep coming to it?" I glanced at Ruth. She did not answer for me. "I don't know if those are different things," I said. "They are," Marcy replied. "What if I say both? Then you have to be honest that you're asking Ruth to keep paying for one of them. Paying how?" Marcy pointed her fork toward the kitchen. "Tess has been hosting one dinner for an hour, and she's ready to throw the chicken through a window." "I can hear you," Tess said. "That's why I said it." Frank beamed at his wife. "She's very direct." "She has your share, too," I told him. Ruth sat with her hands folded near her plate. She had been served dinner for once, yet she looked no more relaxed than she did at home. Maybe because she was waiting for somebody to accuse her of enjoying it. I said, "I'm afraid that if we don't have the house, I won't be useful." Nobody laughed. Cal stared at his plate. Tess stopped in the kitchen doorway. I continued because stopping would have turned the sentence into another locked door. I know how to be needed there. Something breaks, I fix it. Somebody needs a room, there is one. Everybody wants dinner, your mother makes it happen, and I carve whatever comes out of the oven. If we leave, I don't know what any of you need me for. Ruth's face tightened. Cal said, "We could need you without needing storage. Could you?" "Yes." For what? He opened his mouth, then shut it. The failure hurt, but I appreciated that he did not lie. Dana answered instead. Maybe that's something everybody has to learn, not just you. Tess crossed her arms. Keeping the house doesn't stop you from getting older. No, I said. And selling it doesn't make you responsible for what happens next. She flinched. Ruth looked from Tess to me. That is what this is really about. Tess sat down again, though not in her assigned chair. She took the empty seat beside her mother. I thought if I found the right place and the right buyer, nobody would be scared, she said. Frank tore another roll in half. How'd that work out? Marcy closed her eyes. To my surprise, Tess laughed. It came out wet and reluctant, but it was a laugh. We finished dinner without settling anything. The house would have disappointed her. Ruth and I were still apart. Tess was still angry. I still did not know whether the old rooms held my family together or merely made it easy for them to avoid finding another way. But when Tess stood to clear the table, Ruth remained seated. So did Marcy. Dana handed Cal 2 plates. Frank took the serving bowls. I collected glasses and carried them into the kitchen. Tess started to object, then looked at the counter stacked with pans and stepped aside. No schedule for cleanup? I asked. She gave me a warning look. Sorry. No, you're not. No, that one was worth it. By 7:30, her kitchen was clean. The leftover potatoes went into a container. The burned rolls disappeared into the trash when Tess thought nobody was looking. Frank took the bakery box home. Ruth walked me to the door. Wednesday at 11, she said. What's Wednesday? There's a small ranch for sale on Hawthorne. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, big windows. You found it? It was on my list before lunch. Are we going with Tess? No. The answer pleased me more than it should have. Send me the address. I already did. Outside, I checked my phone. Beneath the address, Ruth had added a photograph of the house. It was low, plain, and surrounded by shrubs that needed serious attention. I typed, "The shrubs are terrible." 3 dots appeared. Then Ruth replied, "Is that a yes?" I looked back through the open door. She was watching me, waiting. I typed, "Yes, I will meet you there Wednesday at 11. Ruth read it and smiled. Complete sentence. The shrubs were worse in person. They had grown over half the front windows and swallowed the railing beside the steps. One branch scraped the brick whenever the wind moved. I stood at the curb with my hands in my coat pockets and tried not to look pleased by their failure. Ruth pulled in behind me. She got out carrying a leather folder and wearing shoes suited for walking through empty houses. "You were right," she said, "about the shrubs. I hadn't mentioned them. You mentioned them twice by text and once in the family group by accident. I deleted that. After Cal saw it, a silver sedan was parked in the driveway. A woman about Tess's age stepped out and waved. Ruth introduced her as Leah, the listing agent. I disliked her immediately because she was cheerful, though I understood that was not a reasonable standard. "Mr. and Mrs. Harlan," Leah said. "Come on in. The owner has already moved so we can take our time." The front door opened directly into a living room with 3 large windows. Even behind the shrubs, the room was bright. Sunlight spread across the hardwood floor in pale rectangles. Ruth stopped just inside. I looked at her face before I looked at the room. "You like the light," I said. "Yes." Leah smiled. "The windows were replaced 4 years ago. I checked the corners for moisture. Who installed them?" She named a local company I trusted, which was inconsiderate. The house was smaller than ours without feeling cramped. Living room, dining alcove, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Everything on one floor except the furnace and water heater in a short basement reached by 12 narrow steps. 12? I said. Ruth looked at me. "You counted?" "I count steps. Our house has 14 to the second floor and 11 to the basement." "I know." "Of course you do." The kitchen had white cabinets, a gray tile floor, and a window over the sink overlooking the backyard. 2 people could stand between the counters without having to negotiate passage. Ruth opened a drawer. It rolled smoothly. "Soft close," Leah said. "I don't need the house to protect the cabinets from me," I said. Ruth pushed the drawer. It slowed before closing. "That is nice," she admitted. "People survived regular drawers for centuries. People survived outhouses too. We're not shopping for one." Leah pretended to check something in her folder. There was a small room off the kitchen that had been used as an office. Ruth walked into it, turned once, and looked toward the backyard. "This could be yours," she said. I stood in the doorway. "It's 8 feet wide, 9. You measured?" "The listing has dimensions. My workbench is 8 feet. Then it fits, with no room for me. You could stand in the hall." Leah made a choking sound that became a cough. I opened the back door. A concrete patio ran along the house. Beyond it, the yard sloped gently to a chain-link fence. There was no detached garage, only a single-car garage at the front that had already been converted into a finished room. "Where would tools go?" I asked. Ruth followed me outside. "The office? Hand tools, maybe. Not the saw, not the drill press, no ventilation. We could convert the garage back. That costs money. So does heating 4 bedrooms we don't use. We use them." "When?" "Tess stayed in one. 8 years ago. Frank and Marcy stay after New Year's. Because Frank drinks too much champagne to drive. He's family. He can drink less." I looked at the yard. The shrubs were not visible from back there, which robbed me of my best argument. Leah stayed inside, giving us privacy with the skill of someone who had watched other couples argue over closet space. Ruth opened her leather folder. "This house is not the decision." "I know. You're acting as if finding one problem means we keep ours forever." I said the room was too small. "You said that before you entered it. I have eyes. You also have a strategy." "What strategy?" "Reject quickly enough that you never have to picture yourself here." I pushed at a loose corner of concrete with my shoe. "You pictured us here before I arrived." "Yes." "Is that better?" "I'm not pretending I didn't." She took a folded sheet of yellow paper from the folder. "My list," she said. The handwriting was hers, blue ink with several additions squeezed between the lines. "Can I read it?" "That's why I brought it. I started at the top. Natural light, fewer stairs, kitchen with room for 2 people, a bathroom guests do not treat like a public facility, space for mixed tools with a door, a table that seats 6 comfortably, not 14 automatically, small garden, no community room, not within 10 minutes of Tess, close enough to town that I can walk somewhere besides the mailbox, a spare room that is spare, not reserved." Near the bottom, Ruth had written, "Rooms we choose together." I read that one twice. "You put my tools above your garden." That wasn't a ranking. It was thoughtful. I'm capable of being angry and thoughtful at the same time. I'm learning that. She took back the page. "What's on yours?" "Not as much. Did you bring it?" I removed the folded transition sheet from my coat pocket. The word itself embarrassed me now, as if I had adopted Tess's project heading by writing on the back. Ruth read my 4 lines. "Workshop. A place where I can shut a door. A place where I can still fix things." She looked at me. "You added that one, last night. And the line about me sitting down. That's still there." She turned the page as though checking for a hidden second side. "This is all? I'm working on it. You had 4 days. I don't write lists. You write lists of lumber. Lumber stays where you put it." Ruth handed the paper back. "What do you want? That isn't a room." I looked past her at a cracked bird bath near the fence. "I don't understand the question." "Yes, you do. I want privacy. That's a room with a door. I want people to visit. That's a dining table. I want you there." She went still. "That is not a room," I said. "No. It's also not an answer you have to give right now." Her eyes moved toward the kitchen window. Leah disappeared from it so quickly, I suspected she had been listening. Ruth folded her list and put it away. "Come see the bedrooms." The main bedroom faced the backyard. It held no furniture, but the carpet showed 4 square impressions where a bed had stood. The closet was wide enough for both of us, though not by much. I stepped inside and found Ruth beside the window. "The maple is too close to the roof," I said. She waited. "The closet is small." She waited. "I can picture our bed on that wall." Her shoulders lowered slightly. "The morning light would come through here," I continued. "You'd hate it unless we bought curtains. I like morning light. You complain when I open the blinds. I complain when you open them while I'm changing. That's different." "Very." I walked into the bathroom. The shower had a built-in bench and a grab bar. I stared at the bar longer than I meant to. Ruth came up behind me. "It's a shower. It's a message. It's a piece of metal. Placed there to keep old people upright. Placed there to keep wet people upright." Leah appeared in the hall. The previous owner installed those after knee surgery. "That doesn't help," I said. Ruth touched my arm. "Mick." I looked at her. We are getting older whether the shower admits it or not. I know. Do you? Yes. The word came out sharper than I intended. Leah started toward the living room. I'll let you two finish looking. I sat on the closed toilet lid, which was not a dignified location for an honest conversation. My father moved out of his house and lasted 11 months, I said. Ruth leaned against the sink. He hated the apartment, I continued. Every time I visited, he asked what was happening on his old street, who had the yard looking good, whether the new owner fixed the porch. He acted like his real life was still happening without him. Your father moved because your mother died, and he stopped eating properly. I know why he moved. He also refused every place we suggested until your brother signed a lease for him. I remember. You aren't your father. What if the house is the part that makes me like him? Ruth's face softened, but she did not rescue me from the thought. Then we look at that, she said, not just square footage. We finished the tour. The basement was dry. The roof was 7 years old. The furnace was older but serviced regularly. I found a cracked switch plate, a slow bathroom faucet, and evidence that the back gutter overflowed near the patio. Leah wrote each concern down without arguing. This made it difficult to dislike her. At the front door, she asked whether we wanted to take another look at anything. Ruth glanced at me. The office, I said. We went back. I stood in the center and stretched both arms out. My right hand nearly touched one wall. My left had several inches to spare. Too small, Ruth said. Yes. She sounded disappointed. I surprised myself by adding, but the light is good. Outside, Leah gave Ruth a printed information sheet. I did not read it. The 30 days were not supposed to become a countdown to someone else's deadline. Would you like me to send similar homes? Leah asked. Not yet, Ruth said. Why not? I asked. Both women looked at me. I said, we're looking at options. Similar homes would be options. Ruth nodded slowly. Send them to both of us. Leah took my email address. I spelled it twice because she kept adding an extra letter to Harlan. Then we shook hands and walked to our cars. Ruth did not open her door. What did you think? She asked. I think the shrubs are hiding good windows. About the house. The workshop wouldn't work. I agree. The street is quiet. Yes. The kitchen is better than the condo. Much. I don't want to buy it. Neither do I. Relief came first, followed by something like disappointment. Ruth saw both. The point wasn't to find our house today, she said. What was the point? To find out whether you would walk through the door. I looked back at the ranch. From the curb, the windows were nearly invisible behind all that growth, but I knew the light was there. Come with me, Ruth said. Where? Home! The word struck me harder than it should have. She got into her SUV. I followed her across town, keeping 2 cars between us at every light, because driving directly behind my wife felt too much like being led. At our house, Ruth parked in the driveway but did not get out immediately. When I came around to her window, she lowered it. I want to walk through it the way we walked through Hawthorne, she said. You know every room. So do you. That's why we've stopped seeing them. She got out and handed me the leather folder. No repairs, she said as we approached the front door. No memories used as evidence. No saying we've always done something a certain way. What are we looking for? The cost of staying. I unlocked the door. The house greeted us with warm air, familiar wood, and the faint smell of Sunday's abandoned ham. Ruth stepped inside as if she were entering a place owned by strangers. For the first few minutes, neither of us spoke. Ruth stood in the hall looking at the coat pegs. There were 9 coats hanging from 6 hooks. 3 belonged to people who did not live with us. Cal's old canvas jacket had been there since November. Tess kept a raincoat in our closet because, according to her, our side of town had unpredictable weather. We could take those down, I said. No repairs, Ruth reminded me. That isn't a repair. It's you solving the first thing before we've named it. I put my hands in my pockets. She opened the hall closet. The upper shelf held board games, folding umbrellas, and a plastic bin labeled holiday table linens. 2 extra dining chairs leaned against the vacuum. If I were buying this house, Ruth said, I would wonder why the dining chairs are in the coat closet. Because 14 people don't fit around the table with 12 chairs. That sentence makes no sense. It does at Thanksgiving. She shut the door. In the living room, the afternoon light was softer than Hawthorne's, but warmer. It came through lace curtains Ruth washed by hand, because she did not trust the machine with them. The wingback chair sat near the fireplace with a pale square beneath one front leg, where Tess's yellow sticker had protected it from dust. Ruth ran her fingers over the chair's arm. "Would you keep it?" I asked. "If we moved? If you were buying the room?" She considered. "No? You love that chair." "I love reading in that chair. I don't love moving it every time we need more seating. We could leave it where it is. We don't. Dana sits there because of her back, so I move it closer to the table. Then Frank wants the lamp. Then somebody needs the side table for drinks. Frank doesn't need the lamp. Tell Frank. I will." Ruth looked at me. "You keep volunteering for future conversations as if that settles the years when I had them." I started to answer, then stopped. "That," she said. "I'm choosing a sentence. Choose one. I'm sorry you had to manage the room while I enjoyed the people in it." Her expression did not soften immediately. I appreciated that. Fast forgiveness would have made the sentence feel cheap. "Thank you," she said. We moved into the dining room. Without everyone around it, the oak table looked enormous. I had built 2 extension leaves for it in the 90s. They lived beneath our bed, wrapped in an old blanket. The surface showed white rings, scratches, and a shallow dent from the year Cal dropped a frozen turkey on it. Ruth pulled out a chair and sat. "What?" I asked. "I'm testing your list." She placed both hands on the table. "Everyone else has left." I sat across from her. "Are you tired?" I asked. "Usually." "Why don't you sit after dinner?" "Because the kitchen looks like a restaurant lost a fight. I could clean it. You could. I will. You say that now. I know." She looked toward the kitchen. "What happens when Frank is telling that story about the canoe again? He follows me while I load the dishwasher. What happens when Tess tells you the serving platters need to be hand-washed? I tell her she can wash them. What happens when Cal says he'll help, then spends 20 minutes finding music? I hand him a sponge. Ruth tapped the tabletop. "You make it sound simple." "Maybe it is." "Then why wasn't it?" I had no answer that did not make me look lazy or oblivious. Both were true in ways I did not enjoy. "Because you always did it," I said. "I know. And because I let the fact that you were better at something become a reason not to learn it." She nodded once. "That's closer?" The kitchen looked smaller when we both stood in it with no meal to prepare. Ruth opened cabinets as if she had never seen them. 3 shelves held serving pieces. Bowls nested inside bowls. Platters stood upright in wooden dividers I had made for her. There were 12 wine glasses, 2 gravy boats, 4 casserole dishes, and enough cloth napkins to outfit a modest wedding. "This is all for other people," she said. "You like the blue platter?" "I do." "You asked me to build those dividers." "I did." Her voice sharpened, and I realized I had begun using memories as evidence. "Sorry." Ruth leaned against the counter. "I'm not innocent in this, Mick. I bought half of it. I taught everybody that arriving hungry was a compliment, and leaving me with dishes was proof they felt at home. You were generous. I was controlling too." I laughed before I could stop myself. She folded her arms. "What?" "I'm trying to picture you admitting that to Tess. I did last night." "How did she take it?" "She chopped an onion into pieces too small to see. That made both of us laugh." Ruth opened the refrigerator. The ham platter was nearly empty. 2 of the labeled containers were gone. "Did you eat the soup and chicken?" she asked. "The soup." "Mick." "I ate the chicken too." "What did you have with it?" "Chicken." "That is not a meal. It was at 6:30. That made it dinner." She caught herself before responding. I watched the old pattern rise in her and stop. "You know how vegetables work," she said. "I do." "Good." We went upstairs. The back bedroom had become Tess's unofficial storage room. 2 boxes of her holiday decorations sat beneath the window. A garment bag hung behind the door. On the dresser was a framed photograph she had brought over to copy and never collected. "She has a larger house than we do," I said. "Her closets are organized. Our closets aren't?" "Not to her standards." I opened one box. Inside were ceramic houses wrapped in tissue paper. Why are we storing her fake houses while discussing selling our real one? Ruth sat on the edge of the bed. "That is a good question. The other spare room belonged to everybody in smaller ways. Cal's guitar case, Frank's shaving kit, extra pillows Marcy liked, a phone charger Dana had labeled with her name because Cal kept stealing it. I looked at the accumulation. They're going to take this personally. Taking back their own property? Losing their rooms? They don't have rooms here. They think they do. Ruth smoothed the bedspread. So did I, until I left. What does that mean? At Tessa's house, I'm in the guest room. There is no drawer for me. She asks whether I need a towel. She knocks before entering. You like it there? No. Her thermostat is set for reptiles. But I remembered what it feels like to be a guest instead of staff. The word landed in the quiet room. Is that how you feel here? Sometimes, I sat beside her. Not with me, she added. Not always. Don't turn it into something easy to reject. I'm trying not to. You built my garden shelves. You make coffee every morning. You spent an entire Saturday finding the exact bulb I like for the lamp beside my chair. They stopped making it. I know, you care for me in 100 ways. But when the family comes, you become one of the people I care for. I looked at the guitar case propped against the wall. I don't want that to be true. That isn't the same as it not being true. Our bedroom was last upstairs. Ruth opened the closet, then closed it without comment. She sat at her side of the bed and looked toward the windows. What's the cost of this room? I asked. 14 stairs. That's the house. The room is at the top of them. Anything else? She looked at the smooth pillow where she had not slept. Knowing I can leave, she said. I felt that in my throat. Do you want to? I did leave. I mean permanently. I don't know. The honest answer hurt less than a comforting lie would have. We went down to the basement. On the third step, Ruth stopped. This one, she said. What about it? You sit here, sometimes. The listening step. I don't spy. No, you make yourself available to overhear. That sounds worse. It's different. I sat where she had stopped. From there, I could see the edge of my workbench and hear the refrigerator upstairs. Voices in the kitchen carried clearly through the vent. Ruth sat one step above me. Why here? She asked. I can hear everybody without having to be in the middle. You like the middle, I like knowing it's there. The workshop took up most of the basement's finished side. Pegboards covered one wall. The 8-foot bench ran beneath them, scarred and darkened from years of use. A vise was bolted to one corner. The drill press stood near the small window. Ruth walked around slowly. What would it cost you to leave this? She asked. More than furniture. I know. I built half this house from this room. Cabinet doors, shelves, the dining leaves, that little stool you use in the pantry. You hate that stool. It wobbles. You made it. That doesn't mean I approve of it. She touched the workbench. Could you build another one? Yes. Would it be the same? No. There was no point pretending. I ran my hand across a groove left by a saw that slipped 20 years earlier. This is where I know what I'm doing. You know what you're doing other places? Not lately? Ruth looked toward the stairs. You also come down here when you don't want to answer me. Yes. The word echoed faintly. She turned back. I do, I said. Sometimes I come down here because fixing a drawer feels easier than telling you I'm afraid. Afraid of me? Afraid I'll say the wrong thing and you'll remember it forever. I remember the silence too. I'm beginning to understand that. We stood on opposite sides of the bench. Could we stay? Ruth asked. The question surprised me. I thought you wanted to sell. I do. But 30 days means looking at both choices. What would staying require? She opened the leather folder and took out her list. No automatic dinners. The spare rooms stop belonging to other people. Everyone knocks. We hire help for the work neither of us wants. We decide what leaves the house before the house decides for us. And the stairs? They stay. I could put better lighting in. That's a repair. It's also practical. She smiled faintly. Fine. What else? Ruth folded the list again. I would need to believe the changes would last after everybody got uncomfortable. They'd be uncomfortable. Yes. So would we. Yes. Upstairs, the house creaked. No voices, no plates, no footsteps arriving without warning. Ruth looked around the workshop one more time. I want to sleep here tonight. I held still. That isn't an answer about the house, she said. Or us. I'm tired of Tessa's mattress. Understood. I'm not making dinner. We have ham. Ham is not a plan. I can make eggs. With a vegetable, I'll negotiate. She laughed and went upstairs. I stayed by the workbench long enough to understand that she had come home because she chose to, not because I had waited her out. Then I followed her up and made eggs with spinach. After we ate, Ruth sat at the table while I washed both plates. No guests had come. Nobody needed a bed. The kitchen took 7 minutes to clean. When I turned off the light, she was still sitting there, watching me as if the room belonged to us again. That night, we lay on opposite sides of the bed, with enough space between us to accommodate a neutral country. Ruth read for 20 minutes. I pretended to read a magazine about woodworking, though I stayed on the same page until she turned off her lamp. "Are you comfortable?" I asked. "I'm fine." That isn't an answer. It's the answer you've given me for 42 years. I didn't realize we were rationing it. She shifted beneath the blanket. "I'm comfortable physically. And otherwise, no." "Thank you? For what?" The complete sentence. She sighed, but I heard amusement in it. I lay in the dark listening to the furnace. Ruth's breathing gradually slowed. Mine did not. At some point, our feet touched beneath the blanket. Neither of us moved away, but neither of us pretended that was an answer either. In the morning, I made coffee and used the correct bulb over the sink, though I had always thought it was too dim. Ruth came down in her robe, stopped in the doorway, and looked at the eggshell shells in the trash. "You cooked again?" "I made toast." "That isn't cooking. I used 2 settings." She poured coffee into her usual cup. Her phone buzzed. "Tess?" I asked. "Yes. What did you tell her?" "That I slept here." "What did she say?" Ruth turned the phone around. Tess's message read, "Okay." "That's not a complete sentence," I said. "It is technically. It has no useful information. Now you understand motherhood." We sat at the kitchen table without discussing whether Ruth was staying that night. At 10, she took the canvas bag upstairs and unpacked it. I did not follow her. At 10:15, she came back down carrying Tess's garment bag from the spare room. "I think we should ask everyone to collect their things," she said. "All at once. If we do it individually, it will take 6 months and involve 4 lunches. Saturday, 10 to noon. No lunch. Coffee? Coffee is fine." I typed the message. Ruth read it before I sent it. "Please collect anything you are storing here this Saturday between 10 and noon. We are clearing the spare rooms and closets as part of evaluating the house. This does not mean we have decided to sell. Please knock when you arrive." Ruth pointed to the final sentence. "That will be taken personally." "It is personal." I sent it. Cal replied with a photograph of a moving dolly. Tess called Ruth instead of me. I could hear her voice from across the table. "Are you listing the house?" "No." "Then why are you clearing it?" "Because half the closets belong to people with their own closets." "What am I supposed to do with the village?" "Take it home." "I don't have space." "Neither do we." A long burst of Tess followed, too fast for me to make out. Ruth said, "Saturday between 10 and noon," and ended the call. "You hung up on her." "I did." "How do you feel?" "Powerful and slightly nauseous." On Saturday, Tess arrived at 9:42. I knew it was her because the front door opened without a knock. She stepped into the hall carrying flattened cardboard boxes and found Ruth and me standing beside the coat pegs. "You said 10, Ruth told her. "I thought I'd get a head start." "You also said knock," I added. Tess looked back at the door. "I have a key, so do we. I've had this key for 20 years, and you're welcome to keep it for emergencies. This qualifies as an emergency. You're picking up ceramic houses." Her mouth tightened. I opened the front door. Cold air entered around me. "Are you serious?" "Yes." "You want me to go back outside and knock?" "I want you to start treating this as our house." For a moment, I thought she would leave completely. Tess's face went blank in the way it did when anger became too large for expression. Ruth said, "Please." That made the difference. Tess stepped onto the porch. I closed the door. 3 seconds later, the knocker struck twice. I opened it. "Good morning," Tess said. "Good morning. This is ridiculous." "Probably." She came inside and shoved the flattened boxes against my chest. At 10:01, Cal and Dana knocked. Cal held the moving dolly from his photograph. Dana carried an empty plastic tote and a bag of bagels. Ruth looked at the bag. "They're for us," Dana said. "I have no intention of making you arrange them on a platter." "I like her," I told Cal. "So do I. I'm trying not to ruin it." Tess was upstairs wrapping ceramic houses in old newspaper. Every few minutes, we heard a drawer shut harder than necessary. Cal retrieved his guitar case from the second spare room. He opened it, plucked one string, and winced. "When did you last play?" I asked. "When people still bought ringtones. Why did we keep it? You never asked me to take it." The answer was simple enough to annoy us both. Dana lifted the labeled phone charger from the dresser. "I wondered where this was." "You labeled it," Cal said. "How did you lose it?" I left it in a room your family claimed belonged to everyone. Cal gave me a sideways look. She's been spending time with Mom. Your mother makes a good case. She usually does. We carried the guitar, a box of old sales awards, 2 winter coats, and a set of speakers to Cal's car. He had stored more than he remembered and less than Tess had predicted. I figured clearing the rooms would bother you, he said at the trunk. It does, because it feels like moving, because it feels like they won't come back. Cal closed the trunk. My guitar hasn't visited you in 9 years. It occupied space. That's a low standard for affection. I know. He leaned against the car. Dana and I talked after dinner. About the house? About why I never invite you over. I waited. Cal picked at a loose corner of the dolly's handle grip. My place is small. Dana moved in, and we never figured out where people sit. The dining table is also my desk. Your house is easier. That's what your mother said. I know. So we're going to host next month. Host what? Dinner at your place? That is generally what hosting means. Who's coming? You and Mom. Maybe Tess if she stops frightening the silverware. I looked toward the house. Tessa's shadow moved across an upstairs window. You don't have to prove anything, I said. I'm not. I'm practicing. The words stayed with me as we went back inside. Frank and Marcy arrived at 10:40 carrying no boxes because Frank insisted he had nothing stored in our house. Ruth led him to the upstairs bathroom and opened the cabinet beneath the sink. Inside were his shaving kit, slippers, antacid tablets, a phone charger, a bottle of bourbon, and 3 neckties. Frank stared. I've been looking for that bourbon. Marcy took the bottle. You don't deserve it. What about the ties? You can have those. By 11:30, the hall was crowded with outgoing boxes. Tess had filled 4. One contained the ceramic village. Another held frame photographs, table runners, and the raincoat she had apparently been keeping against a private weather system. She stood in the back bedroom staring at the bare dresser. I stayed in here for 7 months, she said. I remember. You said I could stay as long as I needed. You could. I don't understand how this became me taking advantage. It didn't, I said. You needed the room then. You don't now. She crossed her arms. It still felt like mine. I know. If you sell, somebody else sleeps here. Yes. And if you don't? It becomes a room your mother and I decide how to use. Tess looked at Ruth. What do you want it to be? I don't know yet. You always said it was the guest room. I always said a lot of things because they kept everybody comfortable. Tess's eyes moved to the canvas bag now folded on a chair in our bedroom. You came back. Yes. Because Dad looked at one house? I came back because I wanted to sleep in my own bed. That's all? Ruth's voice stayed level. You're doing it again. Doing what? Taking my choice and turning it into evidence for the outcome you want. I want you to be happy. Then let me be uncertain. Tess looked wounded. You asked for my help. I did. Then I let your certainty stand in for mine. That wasn't fair to either of us. For once, Tess had no immediate answer. Downstairs, Dana sliced the bagels on a cutting board and left them in the paper bag. People poured their own coffee. No one asked Ruth for plates. Frank ate over the sink until Marcy told him he was dropping crumbs. At noon, the last box left. Tess stood on the porch with her key in one hand. Do you want this back? She asked. I looked at Ruth. Keep it, Ruth said, for emergencies. Tess slipped it onto her key ring. How do I know what counts? If you have time to ask, I said. It probably isn't one. Cal laughed from the driveway. Tess did not. But when she left, she knocked twice on the outside of the closed door before walking away. Ruth and I went upstairs. The back bedroom looked larger without Tess's boxes. The other room echoed after Cal removed the guitar and speakers. Pale rectangles marked the carpet where things had rested too long. I thought this would make the house feel less crowded, Ruth said. It does. It also feels abandoned. Yes. She opened a window. Cold air entered, carrying the dry smell of winter. My phone chimed. Leah had sent 3 listings to both of us. The first was a townhouse with no garage. The second had a large garage and a kitchen with one tiny window. The third was a brick bungalow on the far side of town, set back from the road beneath 2 mature oaks. The kitchen windows faced a narrow garden. Behind the house stood a detached 2-car garage with a side door and 3 long windows. Ruth leaned over my shoulder. That one, I said. You haven't read the details. It has a door. It also has light. We stood in the empty spare room, looking at the same small photograph. Ruth tapped the screen. "Tell Leah we want to see it." I opened my email. "Yes," I said. "We do." The bungalow's side door stuck halfway open. Leah put her shoulder against it. Humidity. "It's 28 degrees," I said. "Seasonal swelling." "In which season?" Ruth nudged me. "You like the door?" "I like that there is one. The door itself can still be terrible." Leah gave it a second push. The frame released with a groan, and we stepped into a narrow mudroom that smelled faintly of cedar and old coffee. The house was not empty. The owner had moved into an apartment, but left enough furniture behind to show where life had happened. A worn bench stood beneath hooks by the door. 2 pairs of gardening gloves rested on a shelf. A calendar from the previous year still hung beside the kitchen entrance, open to September. "Owner is a retired nurse," Leah said. "She lived here 31 years. "Why'd she leave?" I asked. "She wanted to be closer to her sister." I looked at Ruth. "People move toward family too," she said. I didn't say anything. You looked. The kitchen had pale yellow walls, oak cabinets, and 2 wide windows above a deep porcelain sink. Sunlight filled the room despite the overcast day. A round table sat in one corner, with a single chair angled toward the garden. Ruth walked to that chair and touched the back. "One chair," she said. Maybe her sister took the others. Maybe she liked sitting alone. "Do you want to sit alone? Sometimes?" I nodded. Ruth waited, perhaps expecting me to turn the answer into a crisis. "I do too," I said. The cabinets were older, but solid. One drawer sagged, the faucet dripped. A patch of counter near the stove had been replaced with a laminate that did not quite match. I opened the cabinet beneath the sink. "No water damage," I said. Ruth looked out the windows. "There are roses. There are thorns. Those are included with roses. I'd need to move them away from the downspout. You've owned the house for 4 minutes. I'm not repairing. I'm observing." Leah opened her mouth, then decided not to enter that discussion. A doorway led from the kitchen into a dining room barely large enough for a 6-person table. The owner's table had 4 chairs. A narrow china cabinet stood against one wall, filled with mismatched cups. Ruth walked the perimeter. "No extension leaves," I said. "There's nowhere to extend." Frank's chair would block the hall. Frank can move his chair. He hates moving during a meal. He'll adapt or remain trapped. The living room faced the front yard. One oak tree filled most of the view, its dark branches reaching across the glass. A brick fireplace occupied the inner wall. The mantel leaned slightly. I put a hand on it. "Don't," Ruth said. "I'm checking." "You're already fixing it in your head. It needs 2 shims." Leah said. "The seller left a list of improvements. Is shimming the mantel on it?" "No, it should be." Ruth looked around the room. "Where would the wingback chair go?" "I thought you didn't want it." "I don't." "I'm checking whether you do." I pictured the chair near the front window, the brass lamp beside it, someone carrying both whenever we needed another seat. "No," I said. "It doesn't belong here." That was the first piece of our old house I let go without being asked. The hallway held 3 doors. One led to a bathroom with blue tile and a tub deep enough to make getting out an athletic event. The second opened into the main bedroom. It was smaller than ours, but had windows on 2 walls and 2 separate closets. Ruth opened one. "Yours," I said. "Why do I get the larger one?" "Because I love you. You don't want to sort your clothes." "That too." The third door led to the spare room. A brass bed took up most of it. There was space for 1 nightstand and little else. "1 guest," Ruth said. 2 if they like each other. Frank and Marcy can manage. "What about Tess? She lives 35 minutes away, 40 with traffic. She'll survive." Ruth sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't want anyone leaving a raincoat here. We can make a policy." "I don't want a policy. I want a normal expectation." "I'm not sure this family has those." "Then we'll practice." The house had 1 more room, a paneled den between the kitchen and mudroom. It was too small for my equipment and too dark for Ruth. She stood in the middle while I opened a closet. "Laundry?" I said. A washer and dryer had been fitted side by side beneath a shelf. No basement stairs, no carrying baskets up 2 floors. Ruth touched the dryer, as though greeting an old friend. "I like this," she said. "You hate laundry. I hate hauling laundry. You could make me do it. I shouldn't have to assign you every task like a seasonal employee. I could notice." "You could." I'm beginning to dislike how many possibilities you keep finding. She smiled. The detached garage stood 20 feet from the mudroom. The path between them was cracked concrete, with a dip near the center that held a thin crust of ice. That would need attention, I said. Yes, you could fall. So could you. I have better balance. You tripped over a vacuum cord last month. The cord moved. The cord was plugged into a wall. Inside, the garage was cold and dim until Leah lifted both blinds. Sunlight entered through 3 long windows along the south wall. The space had a concrete floor, exposed rafters, and an electrical panel newer than the house. An old wooden bench stood beneath the center window. It was not 8 feet, maybe 6. The surface was scarred with cuts, paint, and black marks from hot metal. A line of empty hooks ran above it. I set both hands on the edge. Well, Ruth asked. The wiring needs to be checked. Of course it does. The north wall could hold pegboard. Mick, I'm imagining. She came closer. And I could work here. The words did something to me. Until then, every place we had toured felt like a container designed to hold whatever remained after our real life was removed. The garage did not feel like my basement. It felt possible in a different way. Empty enough to be mine. Used enough that I would not be the first man trying to make something under those windows. I opened the side door. It swung cleanly. This door is better, I said. Ruth leaned against the workbench. You could shut it. Yes, would you? When I needed to. Would you come back out when you asked? That sounds dangerously close to a promise. It is one. She studied my face. I'm trying to stop making promises with silence, I said. Leah had remained near the garage entrance. I'll give you a few minutes. She went back toward the house. Ruth walked to the window. From there, she could see the kitchen windows across the garden. I could see if you were out here, she said, and I could see if you were sitting at the kitchen table after everyone left. That line is becoming less charming every time you use it. I only need it to work once. She laughed softly. We stood in the cold garage longer than necessary. I imagined my tools on the walls, the drill press near the electrical panel, the 8-foot workbench rebuilt beneath the windows. I could not move the old bench without destroying it, so I pictured extending it. That felt different from dragging the past behind me. It felt like meeting it halfway. Back in the house, Leah showed us the small basement beneath the living room. The furnace was 8 years old. The water heater would need replacing soon. The foundation had one repaired crack and no visible moisture. I made a list of questions. Ruth did not accuse me of rejecting the house. At the front door, Leah asked, "Would you like a second showing?" Ruth looked at me. "Yes," I said. Ruth said, "Not yet." Leah glanced between us. I asked, "Why not?" "Because I want to know whether we like it after we leave. That seems reasonable. I'm capable of being reasonable." "I didn't say you weren't. You looked." Leah handed us printed information and walked to her car before we could involve her further. Ruth and I remained beneath the oak tree. The air smelled like snow. A few blocks away, a church bell struck noon. "How far is this from Tess?" I asked. 36 minutes. You timed it. Twice. From Cal, 28. Frank? Nobody knows where Frank is at any given time. Fair. Ruth folded the information sheet and put it into her leather folder. I don't want distance as punishment. Neither do I. I want enough distance that visits become choices. For them or us. Both. I looked back at the bungalow. The front windows reflected the oak branches, making the rooms hard to see from the street. "Do you want this house?" I asked. "I want what I saw us doing in it." "That sounds like yes." "It sounds like I'm afraid to say yes for the wrong reason." "What's the wrong reason?" "Because it offers an escape from conversations we still need to have. We'll have conversations there too. You could build a very good hiding place in that garage. I could build one in a grocery store if I tried hard enough. That isn't reassuring. I don't want to hide from you." Ruth looked down the quiet street. "I believe that you don't want to." There was a difference between intention and ability. I had asked her to trust the first for years, while providing little evidence of the second. "What would make you believe I can change?" I asked. "Time. We have 21 days. I don't mean the agreement, I know." She looked at me. "Do you?" "Yes." We drove separately to a coffee shop nearby. Instead of going inside, we sat in my truck with paper cups because every table was occupied. Ruth kept the bungalow photograph open on her phone. "What would you miss first?" she asked. "From our house?" "Yes." The basement smell. She turned to me. That is disgusting. Wood, oil, concrete. It smells like work. It smells like damp socks. What would you miss? The sound of people arriving. I thought you wanted them to knock. I can want them to knock and still love hearing the door. We drank our coffee. The dining table, she added. Not serving at it, sitting at it after. We could take it. It won't fit. We could cut it down. Ruth looked horrified. It's wood. It's our table. You just said it won't fit. That doesn't mean you attack it with a saw. I smiled into my cup. Then someone else keeps it. The sentence came out before I understood what I had said. Ruth understood. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away. Someone else, she repeated. Yes, not Laurel. No. Someone we don't know might change the dining room. They probably will. Remove the workshop. They might. Paint over the marks by the basement stairs. I stared through the windshield. Yes. Ruth reached across the console and took my hand. For years, I had believed loving the house meant preventing those things. Sitting there with her fingers between mine, I understood that love might also mean allowing the place to continue without us. I want the bungalow, I said. Ruth's grip tightened. So do I. We did not call Leah from the truck. We drove home, walked through our rooms once more, and sat at the long oak table until the winter light disappeared. Then Ruth took out her list, and I unfolded mine. At the bottom of my page, I wrote, "Sell because we choose what comes next." Ruth read it. "This is our decision?" she asked. "Yes." Not a way to prove Tess wrong. No. Not because I left. No. Not because you're afraid I'll leave again. I answered carefully. I'm afraid of that. But no. Ruth put her hand over the sentence. Then tomorrow, she said, we tell Leah we want a second look. And after that, if it still feels right, we put this house up for sale. Neither of us asked the family's permission. On the second visit, the bungalow's downstairs toilet ran continuously. The oven made a noise like loose change in a dryer, and rain revealed a dark stain beneath the mudroom window. I liked it more. Not because of the problems, because Ruth saw them too and did not pretend otherwise. We spent nearly an hour in the house without Leah, moving from room to room and describing what would actually fit. Our bed would go beneath the east windows. The round kitchen table could seat 4, 6 if nobody objected to touching knees. The brass lamp would fit in the living room, though not beside the wingback chair because the wingback chair was not coming. In the garage, I measured the wall beneath the windows. 11 feet, 4 inches, I said. Ruth stood in the doorway holding my coffee. Is that enough? It's more than enough. For the bench? For me. She handed me the cup. Good. We told Leah to move forward. I expected the decision to feel larger in the moment, maybe accompanied by thunder, or at least a serious expression from Leah. Instead, she checked something on her phone and said she would contact the seller. Ruth asked about the mudroom window. I asked about the garage electrical panel. Then we drove home and ate soup. The bungalow did not become ours that day. Our house did not stop being ours, but the direction changed and both of us felt it. Ruth moved her canvas bag from the bedroom chair back to the closet. That evening, we asked Tess, Cal, and Dana to come over Saturday morning. We chose morning because Ruth refused to feed anyone, and I did not trust a conversation held after wine. Tess replied, "About the house?" I wrote, "Yes." She called immediately. I did not answer. 2 minutes later, Ruth's phone rang. She did not answer either. Cal sent a picture of a man wearing a helmet at a conference table. Dana added, "We'll be there at 10. Tess arrived at 9:59 and knocked. I opened the door. "I'm learning," she said. "Thank you." She walked into the kitchen and saw the bakery box on the counter. "I thought Mom wasn't serving food." "I bought donuts," I said. "That's serving food. They're still in the box." Ruth came in, carrying coffee. We have made peace with the box. Cal and Dana arrived at 10:03. Tess looked at the clock but did not comment. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Laurel's paint cards had rested. The condo brochure was gone. Ruth had put it in the recycling the day after she came home. Nobody reached for a donut. I had spent the morning preparing sentences. They sounded excellent in the basement and ridiculous in front of my children. Ruth touched my wrist beneath the table. "We've decided to sell the house," I said. Cal looked at Ruth, then at me. Tess said, "To who?" "No one yet." "You turned down Laurel without another buyer?" We didn't turn down Laurel, Ruth said. Laurel withdrew. After Dad called her, I apologized to her. Tess looked at me and convinced her not to buy. I did no such thing. She was excited before she talked to you. She understood afterward that we had not agreed to sell. You made her feel guilty. Laurel is an adult. She made her own decision. Tess pushed her chair back half an inch. So you're listing it? Yes, Ruth said. With Leah? Yes. You've already chosen an agent? She showed us several places, I said. Tess's attention snapped toward me. You found somewhere? We found a brick bungalow on the far side of town. How far? About 36 minutes from you. You timed it? Cal asked. Your mother did. Tess stared at Ruth. You made an offer? We've expressed interest, Ruth said. There are details to settle, and you didn't tell us. We're telling you now. After you decided. Yes. Tess laughed once. That's incredible. What is? I asked. You accuse me of excluding you from the biggest decision of your life, and now you've done the exact same thing to us. No, I said. We made a decision about our own home. This is our family home. It is the family home. It is not the family's house. That's wordplay. It's the difference that started all of this. Cal reached for a donut. Tess looked at him. What? He asked. The news is out. He chose a glazed one and passed the box to Dana. You're okay with this? Tess asked him. I don't know yet. You don't have an opinion? I'm trying this new thing where I let the people moving decide where they move. That's convenient. No, convenient is keeping all my things here and showing up for meals. Dana raised her donut slightly. He did take the guitar. He put it in our bedroom, Tess said. I'm working on placement. Tess turned back to Ruth. You said you didn't want to rush. We didn't. It's been less than 30 days. The 30 days were for us to make a decision without pressure. We made one. You promised 30. We promised no decision had to be made before then, I said. We didn't promise to remain confused for the full period. Tess's eyes moved around the kitchen. Have you thought about what this does to everybody? The question might have angered me a week earlier. Now I heard the fear beneath it. Yes, I said. What happens to holidays? They rotate, Ruth answered. Cal stopped chewing. Tess looked at her mother as if she had proposed moving Christmas to April. Rotate where? Our bungalow can handle a small dinner. Your house. Cal and Dana's. Cal swallowed. We've already volunteered for next month. You have? Tess asked. Dinner, at our place. You don't have enough chairs. We're aware of chair technology, Dana said. I own 4. He owns 3. We're optimistic. Tess ignored them. Thanksgiving can't rotate. Everyone comes here. Not anymore, Ruth said. But the new owners will own it, I said. You could choose buyers who understand the tradition. We're choosing buyers who want the house. And if they tear out the dining room? I felt the old resistance rise. I could see the archway gone, the table removed, walls painted colors Ruth would never choose. They might, I said. Tess stared at me, waiting for the rest. That will be their decision. Her face folded for a second before she recovered it. How can you say that? Because leaving means leaving. I thought you loved this place. I do. Then why sell it to strangers? Because I love your mother, too. Ruth's hand tightened around mine beneath the table. Tess looked away. Cal reached for a second donut and thought better of it. What's the bungalow like? I showed him the photograph on my phone. He enlarged the garage. That yours? If everything works out. The windows are good. I know. Dana leaned over. The kitchen is beautiful, functional, I said. It can be both, Ruth told me. Tess did not look at the photograph. Why that side of town? She asked. It's quieter, Ruth said. Closer to shops than we are now. There's a walking path 2 streets over, and farther from me. And closer to neither of you, Ruth replied. That matters. Tess flinched. Why? Because I don't want proximity to become another assignment. I don't assign you things. Ruth gave her a look. Fine, Tess said. Sometimes I ask. You left 3 blouses in my guest room because you said my iron is better. You like ironing. I like you. The sentence stopped Tess. Ruth continued. That doesn't mean everything I do for you is my favorite thing. Tess's eyes filled, but her voice stayed hard. So, this is punishment. No. If it were punishment, we would move somewhere with no guest room and refuse to give you the address. Cal lifted one finger. That would be clear. Dana lowered his hand. Ruth said, There is one guest room. You will be welcome. You will not have a drawer. Tess looked toward the stairs, perhaps picturing the empty back bedroom. What about the table? She asked. We're not taking it, I said. That seemed to hurt her more than the house. You built it. I built the extension leaves. You can't leave it. It won't fit. Then don't buy a house where it doesn't fit. No one answered. Tess rose and walked into the dining room. We followed more slowly. She stood beside the oak table and touched the dent from Cal's frozen turkey. I thought this stayed, she said. The table? Ruth asked. All of it. Her voice was small enough that I had to move closer. I thought Laurel would buy the house, and we could still come here. It would change, but not completely. Mom wouldn't have to work. Dad would have his new place. We'd still have this. There was the truth of her plan. She had wanted to move us without moving herself. Ruth put an arm around her. Tess resisted for one breath, then leaned in. You were trying to arrange a loss nobody had to feel, Ruth said. Is that so terrible? No, it's impossible. Tess began to cry quietly against her mother's shoulder. I wanted to offer a solution. Let her take the table. Find storage. Ask whoever bought the house to keep us for holidays. Each idea would have soothed the moment and preserved the problem. So I stood beside them and let my daughter grieve something before it was gone. Cal entered the dining room holding the bakery box. Anybody want the last glazed? Tess laughed into Ruth's shoulder despite herself. Your timing is diseased, she said. I waited as long as I could. She wiped her face and took the donut. The conversation ended without her approval, but not with a slammed door. Tess left, carrying no furniture and making no promises. At the front step, she turned back. If the bungalow works out, I want to see it. After we decide it's ours, Ruth said. Tess nodded, though she did not like the answer. Leah called that afternoon. The bungalow's owner was willing to proceed if we were serious. Ruth and I stood at the kitchen window while Leah talked through the next steps. I watched the bare branches scrape across the glass. When the call ended, Ruth asked, "Are we serious?" I looked toward the dining room, then down the hall, past the rooms that had held everybody we loved. Yes, I said. Call her back. The following morning, Leah placed a for sale sign in our front yard. She asked whether we wanted a sold rider ready for later. No, Ruth and I said together. For once, we were not letting anyone choose the ending before we reached it. The first showing was scheduled for Thursday at 4. At 3:15, Ruth was wiping fingerprints from the refrigerator while I adjusted the mantel. No repairs, she said. We're selling now. Repairs are allowed. You've adjusted that mantel 3 times in 40 years. It's going to bother people. It bothers you. That qualifies me as people. Ruth put the cloth down. Are you ready? For strangers to judge the angle of my mantel. For strangers to walk through our rooms. No. Good. Me neither. We left before Leah arrived and drove to a coffee shop 10 minutes away. Ruth brought a book. I brought nothing because I had apparently believed I would spend an hour staring straight ahead. At 4:20, I checked my phone. No messages, I said. Leah said she would call afterward. At 4:30? Afterward is not a time. Now you understand my objection to vague language. Ruth read the same page for another 5 minutes, then closed her book. What do you think they're doing? Opening cabinets. They're allowed to. I know. Looking in closets, I know. Judging the carpet. The carpet deserves it. She smiled, then glanced toward the door, as if a stranger might walk in, carrying one of our serving bowls. Leah called at 5:10. The showing had gone well. The couple liked the dining room and garden, but thought the bedrooms were small. They're normal bedrooms, I said. They own a large bed, Leah replied. Then they have a furniture problem. Ruth took the phone from me. The second showing produced no response. The third couple loved the street, but wanted an open kitchen. The fourth asked whether the woodwork could be painted. Did Leah remove them? I asked. From the house, Ruth said. From consideration. They are allowed to paint wood. Not that wood. You said new owners could change things. I meant within reason. Ruth put both hands on my shoulders and turned me away from the front window before the prospective buyers came outside. You cannot glare at people while they stand beside the sign. I'm looking at my yard. You're looking at their paint swatches. They're gray. Walk away. I walked away. The fifth showing was a couple named Nina and Paul. We never met them during the viewing, but Leah said Nina was a ceramic artist and Paul worked from home. They liked the garden light and spent nearly 20 minutes in the basement. That evening, Leah called with a question. They want to know whether the workbench is included. Ruth and I were eating pasta at the kitchen table. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. No, I said automatically. Leah waited. Across from me, Ruth said nothing. I pictured the bench beneath the pegboards, 8 feet of gouge maple, built against the wall because the basement floor dipped near the window. Moving it would mean taking it apart. Even if I managed that, it would not fit the bungalow garage without blocking one of the long windows. I could shorten it. I could rebuild it. I could spend 2 weeks forcing an old bench into a new room because leaving it felt too much like agreeing that one life had ended. Mick? Leah asked. I set down my fork. Yes, I said. The workbench is included. Ruth watched me closely. You're sure? Leah asked. Yes. Please tell them they can have it. After the call, Ruth reached across the table. You answered, she said. I'm aware. No one guessed. I'm trying not to make this a celebration of basic speech. It's been a long month. Nina and Paul made a reasonable offer. Another buyer offered slightly more but wanted a date that did not work for us. Ruth and I chose together at the kitchen table, asking questions until there was nothing left hidden beneath a stare. We accepted Nina and Paul's offer. The word accepted felt important. Not assumed, not interpreted, said aloud. Twice. The bungalow moved forward too. Leah handled the details. Ruth kept the dates in her leather folder. I inspected what needed inspecting and did not turn each flaw into an argument against change. When everything settled into place, the sign in our yard gained a red strip across the top. Sale pending. Tess saw it before we told her the update. She called from the curb. I'm outside, so knock, I said. 2 strikes sounded through the hall. When I opened the door, Tess was staring at the red strip. That was fast. It didn't feel fast. Who are they? People named Nina and Paul. Do you know them? No. What are they going to do with the house? Live in it. Tess looked past me toward the dining room. Do they want the table? We didn't offer it. Then I want it. I had expected the request. I still was not ready for it. Where will you put it? I'll make room. You said you didn't have room for the ceramic village. I made room. Ruth came down the stairs carrying folded towels. Do you want the table, or do you want us not to leave it? Tess looked at her. Does it matter? Yes. I don't know. That answer was new for her. Ruth set the towels on the hall table. You don't have to decide today, but we need to know before the movers come. Tess walked into the dining room. She sat in her usual chair and spread both palms across the oak. I'll take the dent, Cal said from behind us. He and Dana had arrived without anyone hearing them knock. You can't take a dent, Tess said. I could cut out that section. You're not cutting the table, I said. That's what your mother told me. Ruth looked pleased that somebody finally understood her. Packing changed the house faster than selling it. Pictures came down, leaving clean rectangles on the walls. Books filled boxes, closets echoed. The brass lamp went into a crate marked living room, new. A label Ruth allowed because it described a destination rather than a claim. Cal helped me clear the workshop. We worked in silence for the first hour, but it was a working silence, not one waiting to be interpreted. He wrapped the drill press cord. I sorted hand tools into cases. When we reached the vise, I ran my fingers across its handle. Taking it? Cal asked. Yes. Complete sentence. Don't make me regret raising you. He unbolted it from the workbench. The metal left 4 dark circles in the wood. Looks strange without it, he said. It does. He set the vise into a crate and wiped his hands on his jeans. You really okay leaving this? No. He waited. I'm still leaving it, I added. Cal nodded. Dana says courage is being scared and doing the thing anyway. Dana works in human resources. She contains multitudes. We carried the crate upstairs together. Tess chose not to take the dining table. She came over alone 3 days before the move, walked around it twice, and said, It belongs in this room. That means we leave it for Nina and Paul, I asked, if they want it. Leah passed along the question. Nina and Paul wanted it. Nina planned to use it for large ceramic pieces until they decided how to arrange the dining room. Tess took that news badly. She's putting clay on it? It has survived Cal and a frozen turkey, I said. It can handle clay. It's a dining table. It's wood. You told Mom that, and she acted like you threatened it. I've grown. Tess laughed, but her eyes were wet. We planned one last dinner in the house. The word planned mattered. Ruth sent a message asking everyone to bring something and assigned nothing unless they volunteered. Cal and Dana brought pasta and salad. Frank arrived with bread and, after knocking, immediately asked where he had put the wine. Marcy carried a chocolate cake. Tess brought roasted vegetables in one of Ruth's blue casserole dishes, which she returned without being reminded. I carved nothing. We ate from paper plates because most of the dishes were packed. The dining room walls were bare. Boxes lined the hall. Without the sideboard and wingback chair, there was more room around the table than there had ever been when the house was full. Frank told the canoe story. Cal complained that he had heard it 12 times. Marcy corrected 3 details. Dana asked whether the canoe had ever existed. It existed, I said. Thank you, Frank replied. I didn't say you were in it. The table shook with laughter. Ruth sat through the entire meal. When plates were empty, everyone began clearing without being asked. Tess remained beside me. Can we talk? She said. We stepped into the living room. The pale square where the wingback chair had stood looked like a missing tile. Tess folded her arms, unfolded them, then pressed her hands together. Laurel still isn't really speaking to me. I'm sorry. She says she needs time. That sounds fair. I keep wanting to explain it better. Would that change what you did? No? Then maybe let her have the time. Tess stared toward the dining room, where Ruth and Marcy were wrapping leftover cake. I thought helping meant making the uncertainty go away, she said. I know. I thought if I got everything arranged, Mom could stop being tired and you wouldn't have to make a decision you hated. I know that too. She looked at me. I made your life into a problem I thought I had the right to solve. The sentence was exactly what I had needed from her, yet hearing it did not produce victory. It made me see how frightened she had been beneath all that competence. Yes, I said. I'm sorry. I accept your apology. She wiped beneath one eye. That sounded formal. I'm still angry, I figured. And I owe you one. For what? For making my silence everybody else's job. I let you learn that if you pushed hard enough, I would either give in or force you to be the bad one. Then I blamed you for pushing. Tess looked surprised. You did. I know. That doesn't excuse me. No, it does explain some things. Yes. She leaned against me, and I put my arm around her. We stood that way for a while, not fixing anything. From the kitchen, Ruth called, Mick, where do the trash bags go? She knew exactly where they went. I understood the invitation. Under the sink, I called back. Then I added, I'm coming. I went into the kitchen instead of listening from the edge of another room. Tess followed me. Together, we cleaned after the last dinner at the long table. Ruth stayed in her chair until every plate was gone. When the others left, they carried the remaining food with them. That had never happened before. Usually our refrigerator spent 3 days packed with containers nobody remembered filling. This time, Dana took the pasta, Marcy took the cake, and Frank carried home the wine after Ruth confirmed it had not been hidden beneath a sink. Tess stood on the porch last. Do you need help tomorrow? She asked. We have movers, Ruth said. I know, I mean from me. Ruth looked at me. We could use someone at the bungalow to tell them where boxes go, I said. Tess nodded. I can do that. Without reorganizing anything. I heard you, without making labels. I already made. She stopped herself. Bring the labels, Ruth said, but ask before you use them. Tess smiled. 10 o'clock? 10 is good. She hugged Ruth, then me. Before walking away, she knocked twice against the porch post. I'm leaving now, she said. There wasn't a rule for that. We'll add one, I told her. The house became quiet. Ruth and I returned to the dining room. The paper plates were gone. The long table stood beneath the bare light fixture with nothing on it except a water ring near my chair. We should have used coasters, Ruth said. 40 years too late. She sat. I sat across from her. The room no longer looked like ours, but it did not belong to Nina and Paul yet. It existed in a narrow space between lives, holding the marks of both and the promises of neither. Do you want to take the table? I asked. No. Last chance. I want to remember it here. We went room to room, switching off lights. The empty spare bedrooms echoed. Our mattress lay on the floor because the bed frame had already been dismantled. In the basement, the pegboards were bare, except for one bent hook I had missed. The workbench looked wider without my tools. Ruth stood at the bottom of the stairs while I ran my hand across it one last time. You can still change your mind about the bench, she said. No, you don't have to prove anything. I'm not. I touched the 4 circles where the vise had been. Nina will use it, I said. For Clay, so I'm told. Does that bother you? Yes. Ruth waited. I still want her to have it. She came beside me and placed her palm on the bench. We built a life from this room. I built cabinets. You built places for our life to go. That's suspiciously poetic. I'm tired. We turned off the basement light and climbed the stairs. I stopped on the third step. From there, the house sounded the way it always had after everyone left. Pipes ticking, refrigerator humming, Ruth moving above me. For years, I had sat on that step and called it peace when it was really distance. I had listened for evidence that everybody was all right without offering them anything they could answer. Ruth looked down from the kitchen doorway. You coming? Yes. I climbed the rest of the way. The movers arrived at 8 the next morning. By 8:10, one of them had wedged a dresser in the upstairs hall. By 8:12, Ruth had decided she hated moving. By 8:15, I had tried to help and been told by 3 professionals to stand somewhere else. Cal arrived with coffee. Dana came behind him, carrying sandwiches for later. You don't have to feed the movers, Ruth said. They're for us, Dana replied. The movers have better sandwiches. Frank and Marcy appeared at 9, despite not being asked. Frank brought a toolbox. I own tools, I said. They're packed. That doesn't make your tools better. It makes them available. He spent the next hour tightening things nobody had asked him to tighten. Marcy followed with a roll of blue painter's tape, marking the pieces he had made worse. At 9:58, Tess knocked. She wore jeans, work gloves, and a canvas tool belt containing markers, labels, scissors, and 2 kinds of tape. Ruth examined it. You said I could bring them. I did. Where do you want me? The question was so simple that Ruth and I both paused. At the bungalow, Ruth said. Put boxes in the rooms marked on them. If something isn't marked, ask. Okay, don't unpack. I understand. You don't have to arrange the kitchen. Mom? Sorry. Tess left for the new house with the first truck. The wingback chair went to a local charity. The empty spaces beneath furniture disappeared as the furniture itself left. The brass lamp rode in my truck, wrapped in 2 blankets because I did not trust anyone else with it. Last came the crates from the workshop. Cal and I carried the vise together. At the basement door, he looked back. You forgot a hook. I didn't forget it. You're leaving 1 hook? Yes. Why? Because I want to. He accepted that. Nina and Paul arrived as we were finishing. They were not supposed to take possession until later, but Leah had arranged for them to walk through before the house was completely empty. Nina had short, dark hair streaked with silver and wore clay beneath one thumbnail. Paul carried a notebook but never opened it. They stopped in the dining room. The table is beautiful, Nina said. It stays, Ruth told her. Nina looked surprised. Are you sure? Yes, I said. Paul walked around it. We'll take care of it. You'll use it, I corrected. He smiled. That too. Nina asked if she could see the workbench. I took them downstairs while Ruth remained with the movers. The basement sounded different with unfamiliar footsteps. Nina approached the bench slowly. This is perfect. It isn't level. That can be fixed. The floor dips toward the window. Shim the back left leg, not the front. She nodded seriously. The vise isn't included, I said. I noticed the marks. You'll want a protective surface if you're working with clay. I was thinking canvas over plywood. That would work. Paul looked at the empty pegboard. She'll fill this in a week. 2 days, Nina said. I put my hand on the edge of the bench. You don't have to preserve it. Her expression softened. We weren't planning to. Good. It was the answer I wanted, though it hurt. At the front door, Nina asked about the roses. Ruth told her which one bloomed first and which needed cutting back. Paul asked whether the dining leaves were included. I showed him where they were wrapped. Nobody asked whether we planned to visit. Nobody promised us dinners. When it was time to go, I locked the front door and handed the keys to Leah. Tess watched from beside her car. I expected her to cry. Instead, she walked to the oak table visible through the dining room window and pressed 2 fingers against the glass. Then she turned away. Ruth and I stood at the end of the front walk. I thought I'd feel different, I said. How? Like I was abandoning something. Do you? Yes. She took my hand. Me too. That was enough. We got into the truck and left. At the bungalow, Tess had placed every box in the correct room. She had used only 6 labels and asked Ruth before applying 4 of them. The side door still stuck. I shoved it with my shoulder. First project. No, Ruth said. First project is the bed. The door takes 10 minutes. The bed means we don't sleep on a mattress on the floor. 15. Mick. Bed first. That evening, we ate Dana's sandwiches at the round kitchen table. There were no curtains yet, so the setting sun filled the room. Tess sat with us, exhausted and quieter than usual. I like it, she said. The house? Ruth asked. The light. I looked at Ruth. She smiled but did not say she had told us so. Tess walked through the rooms again before leaving. At the spare bedroom, she rested one hand on the frame. Where should I keep things when I stay? In your suitcase, Ruth said. Tess nodded. Right. She did not ask for a drawer. The first week, we discovered that the bathroom fan rattled, the back burner heated unevenly, and the mudroom window leaked whenever rain came from the west. The garage stayed cold even with a portable heater. The roses scratched my coat twice. None of it felt like evidence that we had made a mistake. Ruth chose curtains that let in morning light without turning the bedroom into a public performance. I fixed the side door, then admitted she had been right about the bed. We put the brass lamp near the living room window. Without the wingback chair, it looked taller. The old bench in the garage was sturdy enough to extend. I built a new 8-foot surface along the south wall, but connected it to the 6-foot bench already there. Old scars met clean maple beneath the center window. Cal helped install the vise. He knocked on the open garage door before entering. You can see me, I said, practicing. He held up a paper bag. Lunch. Did Dana make it? Yes. Then come in. We worked until late afternoon. Cal talked about his divorce without making a joke. I listened without retreating into the measurements. When he asked whether I thought he had waited too long to admit he was unhappy, I answered instead of tightening another bolt. Yes, I said. I think we both wait too long. He nodded. Fair. Then we went inside because Ruth had made coffee and wanted company. Cal and Dana hosted dinner the following month. Their dining table was also his desk, just as he had warned us. He stacked his work papers in the bedroom and borrowed 2 folding chairs from a neighbor. Tess sat on one. It sank 2 inches every time she shifted. Dana burned the garlic bread. Cal served pasta from the pot because they owned no large bowl. Ruth reached automatically for the plates when dinner ended, then stopped. Cal caught it. Sit down, he told her. Dad, you dry. I'm a guest. You're my father. It's close enough. I dried. Tess packed leftovers without labeling anyone's refrigerator. The dinner was cramped, noisy, and one of the best we had ever had. Tess hosted the next gathering. She called Ruth 3 times during the week. How many potatoes? She asked on the first call. For how many people? 7. Buy enough for 7. That isn't helpful. It's a potato, Tess. On the second call, she wanted to know whether Marcy still avoided walnuts. Ruth told her to ask Marcy. On the third, Tess said, I understand why you used to answer everything. Because it was easier, because if I don't, they call again. Yes. How did you make them stop? I moved. Tess laughed, then went quiet. I'm sorry, she said. You already apologized. I know. I'm understanding new parts. Ruth offered to bring 1 dish. 1. Tess accepted. By the time we held our first dinner in the bungalow, winter had released the garden. The roses showed red buds. My workshop had a door that closed cleanly, though I left it open more often than I expected. We invited Tess, Cal, and Dana for 4 o'clock. Frank called after hearing about it and asked whether he and Marcy could come. Not this time, I said. He paused. Okay. Next one? We'll plan one. He accepted the answer without dying. Tess arrived at 3:55 and knocked. She carried salad in her own bowl. Where's your raincoat? I asked. At my house. Cal and Dana arrived at 4 with bread they had been asked to bring. Nobody brought extra guests. Nobody opened the spare room. Dana admired the roses. Cal inspected the new bench and ran his finger over the place where old wood met new. At the round table, 5 of us fit comfortably. 6 would have worked. 14 would have required structural changes and a willingness to eat in shifts. Ruth sat while I served. After dinner, Tess collected plates. Cal washed, Dana dried, I made coffee. Nobody asked Ruth where anything belonged. When Tess could not find the containers, she opened 2 cabinets and found them herself. At 7, they put on their coats. You're leaving? I asked. Tess looked worried. You said dinner until 7. I did. Do you want us to stay? For a moment, the old fear rose. If they left, the rooms would be quiet. If I asked them to stay, they might. If I said nothing, they would have to guess. "I've had a good time," I said. "7 is good." Tess kissed my cheek. "We'll invite you next," she said. "I'd like that." They knocked twice on the outside of the door after it closed, a joke that had become a habit. Ruth stood beside me in the small hall. Through the window, we watched them walk to their cars. Cal waved. Tess called something about returning the salad bowl, and Ruth called back that she could keep it until next time. Then they drove away. The kitchen was clean. The spare room was empty. The workshop light glowed across the garden until I went out and turned it off. When I came back, Ruth was sitting at the round table with 2 cups of coffee. There was room beside her, so I sat down. The house settled around us. This time, the quiet belonged to us, and no one mistook it for yes.